No, but they got they sent there. They got to wait till at least Monday for it to get on the register.
Surely good news. Now we've got a whole bill down to the state legislature. We'll have to go everywhere else.
Boss Jason.
Charlie was in your office.
Charlie's here.
Little long one. Where are you, man?
Oh, I've been thinking like I got some good news for you.
Okay, I'll call this meeting to order for Thursday, March 21st, 2019 at 7 o'clock. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, a couple of notes when we're talking about the agenda. First, we're going to recess the meeting at 7:30 to hold a town meeting. And before we do that, we're going to set the referendum hours, and also we're going to hold a public hearing on Small Cities Community Development Block Grant. Are there any additional agenda items?
No.
I would like to add an agenda item. And the agenda item would be the regular minutes of February 7th. I'd like to amend those. So I move we add to the agenda item 8E, the regular meeting minutes of February 7th, 2019.
Did you mean 7E?
I beg your pardon?
You said 8E.
8E. Okay. Yeah, meeting minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, now we'll go on to item number 5, setting the referendum hours. I move to set the 2019 referendum hours at 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. in accordance with Connecticut General Statute Section 7-9B and forward to a town meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now we can start the public hearing. So I move to recess the Board of Selectmen meeting for a public hearing on the Small Cities Community Development Block Grant and reconvene the Board of Selectmen meeting after the completion of the public hearing. So, do you want to, somebody want to come up and talk about the, or present the, hello.
Okay.
This is a public hearing, so you can talk to everybody.
Okay.
What's this about?
Hi, everybody. My name is Linda Collins. I'm the director of the East Windsor Housing Authority. And we would like to apply for funding through the Small Cities Grant for various projects for our residents. And these projects will help maintain and enhance the quality of their lives. We have hired Jen Skellies, our consultant, in the Housing Development Team, and I'll let her give you some more specifics.
So this is a federal program we're applying for. On behalf of the town, we're going to be applying for the funds. They're for public housing modernization. We intend to do some site improvements which will improve emergency access to several of the buildings, which right now we currently do not have. We're going to be doing handicap accessibility upgrades in the bathrooms, tub to shower upgrades. The community room roof is going to be also replaced. And the grant, we're allowed to apply for up to $1.5 million.
So any questions? Yes.
Is there a community match to the grant?
Not from the community, but from the Housing Authority. So the Housing Authority is paying for some of the pre-development activities, such as hiring the architects and engineers, some minimal costs.
When will this start? You have a calendar of, it has to be done within a certain period of time, and then to see what you get?
The application's due April 12th, so
Okay.
we intend to apply then. The announcements are typically later on in the summer. It kind of depends on the administration. Once we get our contract, our actual assistance agreement with the state, then the clock starts ticking. But in order to apply, we have to have 100% plans and specs. All of our diligence is done, so we're essentially shovel ready as soon as we get that contract.
I see, okay. And you said it was up to 5 million?
No, it's up to 1.5 million.
1.5
The
million.
costs are still coming in, we're still developing the plans, so we're working with the estimates, but we can apply for up to 1.5. I don't think it'll be that much.
Okay. And this is throughout the state?
Small cities, towns
Yeah.
are, so this is a competition, so we'll be competing with other small cities who are not entitlement communities, and they are also have the ability to apply for these funds.
Okay. How much is in the pot?
There's
Just the one-
$13 million
There is, okay.
allocated.
So this would be a good share of it then?
In previous years, there's been a change at the state level. We could only apply up to $800,000. They've
Okay.
changed that this year. So that means it's going to be more competitive. People are going to be asking for more money. But the benefit is if you have a worthy project, you'll likely get funded.
Historically, how many towns enter into this competition?
In the past, there've been probably between 11 to 15 towns. Many more attend the workshops and try to get ready, but there's lots of factors involved. They can't get their plans, they can't get their zoning, whatever it is. Some fall off, but 10 to 15 end up applying, and 13 last year were awarded. But again, that was with the $800,000 limit. I expect less towns obviously are going to be awarded. Probably a similar competition though.
And are there significant points that you must hit, and do we understand those?
Yes, we do. You need to follow one of the national objectives. And the national objective we're hitting right now is public housing modernization. And you also need to target specifically low to moderate income individuals. So the Housing Authority is the perfect place to put that money because we meet 100%, we exceed that at 100%.
Does this only include public type housing, or could it be my house?
No. There are different programs. If you were to apply for like a revolving loan program, that's a different kind of strategy. And in some cases, some towns do that. It's less money and they have smaller loans. And there's the ability for, you kind of have to establish a department to facilitate those loans. It's a different product. But for this, for the national objective to get public housing modernization up to that 1.5, it has to be public housing.
Define public housing.
Well, the Housing Authority is public housing serving low-income individuals. So there's an assistance agreement, there's lots more legal kind of ownership structure. But a private developer couldn't go for these dollars, if that's what your question is.
So it has to be municipally owned housing.
Essentially.
How much disruption is there to, or could be, as you know at this moment, to the residents that are there?
We will not be relocating anyone,
Okay.
if that's the
Yeah.
specific question. So we will be conducting rehabilitation with residents in place. In the event that we're doing, when we do the showers, we'll always make sure that the toilets are back in, they have running water.
Okay.
And, you know, we are not relocating or even temporarily relocating anyone.
Okay, that's good.
And this is renovation, not new construction?
Correct. So the biggest piece is the driveway and providing access to the 3 buildings. I don't know the numbers of them. Currently, right now, if an emergency vehicle came in one of the buildings, it's very difficult to get to. So the vehicle would have to park and then walk a great distance. What we're proposing, and we've got established plans for, is to turn that driveway in so that we can get much closer to provide emergency access and also provide additional handicap spaces, which is kind of a health and safety issue.
So if you get funding, the anticipation completion date is by
We're
the
looking at a 9-month construction period.
9 months, okay.
Any award period would be what? When would you?
You have 2 years from the announcement of the award, and there's the ability to do extensions, but it's advantageous for us to shorten that
I
period.
think he was asking when we find out if we.
Yeah, when would you find out when you?
Well, in some rounds we found out in the summer, so we found out in August, and other rounds we found out in November. So it's kind of hard to, I hate to tell you, but
But 6 months or so?
6 months or so. And there's no deficiency period. So once we complete the application and we get it submitted, you know, there won't be an opportunity to make any changes. So we have to make sure we do everything correctly.
If you are not successful, you must resubmit. Your submittal does not stay in queue.
Correct.
We have to start the process over again next year. Excuse me.
Do they critique your submittal? Do they tell you you did not win or you for what this reason?
Knock on wood, I haven't had that happen to me, but in the event that it did, I would request a debrief, and I would have the commissioner there, and I would go through that application. We take it very, very seriously.
And they will debrief you?
They will debrief us on every single piece of paper, but they're by the pound. The applications are hefty, and there's a lot of detail in there.
I'm not really clear, because I've heard different things. Is this under the state or under the town jurisdiction for Park Hill as an example? Because who would do the inspection of the work? Is that the building inspector for East Windsor then?
It would be the town building inspector
Okay.
would be very much involved.
Okay, so that's,
Once construction began, the state
Quite a bit
wouldn't
of work
supersede
there.
that.
okay.
So we have already started communication to,
Yep.
well, just keep them apprised of
Yeah,
our
yeah.
intent of what we'd
That's-
like to do.
that's good.
So,
That's good.
yes, absolutely. And I would just like to reiterate our relationship with our residents in terms of these projects, and we will constantly keep them updated and posted, meet with them, and let them know what the schedule is of all the
Mhm.
timeliness of the projects.
Okay, so when that's being done, they don't have to leave the residence?
No.
No.
Okay,
no. We just recently converted 4 bathtubs to showers.
Mhm.
We just recently did that, and that would be the same type of project that we're looking
Okay.
to do. And the residents did not have to leave their
kind of like
apartments.
Bath Fitter on TV, is that it?
Actually, there'll be a shower,
Yeah,
no
yeah.
tub.
Yeah, but you know what
So-
I'm saying now,
Yes,
how they say
it's
no
that quick.
construction and...
Yes.
Okay,
Our proposal will focus on bathrooms and showers, is that what?
That's one aspect. So we've got 3 different components. We have the driveway, emergency
Yeah, we
access.
talked about that.
We have the tub to shower conversion, which is a handicap accessibility issue. People fall a lot in the
Yep.
tubs. It's a good one to put in. And then we also have the community room roof is currently leaking and it's in need of repair. So those were the 3 kind of scope pieces.
Bob Light from East Windsor. Did I understand you to say you didn't think it would require full $1.5 million, but you were going to ask for that anyway?
We have the ability to ask for it, so when we put out the notices, because right now the architects and engineers are working through the details of the plans and the drainage and all the other pieces, we're waiting for our final cost estimate to come in. So we say up to 1.5 because that's the limit of the grant. But it doesn't appear that it's going to get to that 1.5.
Would it be more likely to get accepted and get awarded if it were less?
Not necessarily. It's a good question though.
So just so I understand before, because this is coming to town vote, right? There's no cost impact to our town?
No.
They're not needing to bond the money in advance
No.
or anything like that that we've
So
seen
these
in
are
other
all
things?
federal funds.
It's 100% funded, it's
Yes.
not a matching,
No.
and so forth?
So if we're awarded, the funds come through the town, and then the town distributes the funds, but there's no requirement from the town, there's no money coming from the town.
Yeah.
Just for clarification for some of the people, Marie, this is Ken Reister, I sit on the housing authority. For those for clarification, and help me with your name, Jen, she is replacing who we used to use, Wagner Associates, for small city clearance. The small city grants have to be approved through the town first in order for us to apply. So when Wagner Associates decided they were no longer going to do the grants, there was a ad put out that she paid for who has housing experience for years and was able to get the approval from the town. So now it's just putting everything together, which they have done a phenomenal job. But if anybody's familiar with Park Hill, if anybody here from the fire department or the ambulance, they know the first string of buildings, when something happens, either the first string or the second string, the ambulance association actually manually get out of their car from the front parking lot and have to run down. And if you happen to be at the far end, you're losing valuable time. So putting in that access road part right there and to the other end halfway, it'll open up the community for better safety and health issues, because we do have an aging population up at Park Hill. They come in and they're not leaving. So when they come in at 50, they're there to whenever. So we want to just make sure with the bathroom renovations that those elderly individuals and handicapped individuals over there, we don't have to worry about them falling out of the tub or into the tub by putting in the showers. We tried to do with another money that was available through the state. We tried to do more, but it got cut back because it took so long to get it. Prices inflated. So with this, we'll be able to go in and bring everything up to 2000. Maybe 2015, but in the best interest of all the tenants there, so.
Thanks, Marie.
Any other questions? Yeah, okay.
Bill Lewis, Melrose Road. There was one thing about the fire alarm system up there. When the fire alarm system comes in for any one of the buildings there, all goes into the main building. And when we get there, we have to go to the main building, and we have to find out which individual housing unit it is. And that should be changed so that we know exactly which building it is before we get there. So we don't have to go to the main building first. So on your fire protection part here, I think you should look into that.
Well, we could certainly talk to the engineer, and I don't know if we have the time to get that developed now, but to a fully integrated system, in other words, where you can
Yeah, when it
identify
goes to the
exactly.
main building first, and then we have to get there, and then we have to find out which individual it is, and we're wasting time there.
And I would just like to say something about that. Actually, the company who installed the fire alarm system is coming tomorrow. And we're going to have a discussion about some things that just need to be worked out, and that's one of them.
You should try to correct that problem.
Yes, thank you.
I think that's a critical problem.
Absolutely.
That we should really have a strong eye on that to fix that. It does not seem, from this seat, too complicated to do it, but, you know, I'm sure it's
Absolutely.
doable,
It's,
just, it should be on the priority
Yes, they're coming
list
tomorrow.
of this.
And we will
Is that
have
something you could
discussion.
include, or would that dilute your effort?
If it's possible to include, and we have money in the budget, and there's a way to get it, an engineered plan put together, and we can integrate it, we can convince our architect to do it, all those things would have to happen, but it would certainly be something that we would put into it. It's due April 12th.
I would think that the company installed the alarm would be the source to say what it is to fix that.
We'll see what happens
I
tomorrow.
think it's a communication problem between the dispatcher, the call center, if
Yeah.
you will, and the 911 dispatcher, so we have to work that out.
Okay.
I don't think there's anything actually not working correctly with the system itself. Yes.
Yes.
A couple of comments. John Burnham, 178 Scannick Road. I'm on the Housing Authority also. On the last grant, we put in a brand new fire alarm system to replace the aged one from 1972. We're working out a few of the bugs. This is a brand new system. This was on our radar. So don't think that, I don't want you to think that we're derelict in our duties about fire and safety of these residents, because we're on that all the time. So just one other comment too that I want to make. I don't want you to think that the roof on the community center, right? It's aging. That's why it has a few issues in the valleys. It's just time to replace it. It's not that we're not paying attention to that either, because we pay attention to every single item up there pretty closely. Fair enough? Okay, that's good. Sorry.
Okay, any other questions? Yes.
I don't have any questions. Bill Towers, 14 Maple Avenue. I think it's great that you're applying for the grants. I think it's a good job that the Housing Authority does. My mom's on the Housing Authority. And we all know that every building in our town is running into the same issue. We're on top of it, but there's only so much we can do. And going after grants is a way to get money. And I think it's a good job.
Okay, any more questions? Yes.
Yep, Kathy Billady, 343 Scantic. I forgot to do that before. All I can say is this seems like a no-brainer. So I want to just add that. It looks like they've done their homework. They're going to get some money to take care of some business. I think it's phenomenal. So.
Thank you very much.
Okay, other comments or questions? Okay, very good. I'll call the public hearing to a close. We'll reconvene the Board of Selectmen meeting, and the next agenda item is approval of minutes. I move to approve the special meeting minutes of February 19th, 2019.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. I move to approve the special meeting minutes of February 21st, 2019. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
I move to approve the special meeting minutes of February 27th, 2019. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move to approve the regular meeting minutes of March 7th, 2019. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Abstain, that was there.
Okay. And I would move to amend the regular meeting minutes of February 7th, 2019, regarding Cassie Simonelli's public participation. And what I'd like to change it to is I'd like it to read like this, and I've discussed this change with both Andy Hoffman and Kathy Simonelli, and they agree that we can substitute that, yes.
I didn't think it was the March 7th meeting. I thought it was the meeting, I don't think those meetings are on.
No, it's a February 7th.
You didn't think it was- Oh, okay, so that's not, all right, not one of the ones on the agenda, okay.
Yeah, that, we added it, though.
All right,
All right.
gotcha, I missed that part.
I think I did, too. I said item 8 or 7. Okay. Kathy Simonelli's public participation. CIP Chairman Simonelli referenced the Board of Selectmen's minutes of January 17th, 2019 regarding Selectman Hoffman's description of a conversation Selectman Hoffman had with her concerning the status of questions submitted after the first CIP meeting. Chairman Simonelli agreed that the conversation has occurred, but her recollection differed. Chairman Simonelli recalled she said she had not yet had time to answer Selectman Hoffman's questions, and by the time she was able to research his questions, she believed Selectman Hoffman had contacted others to receive answers. Selectman Hoffman stated that he did not seek answers from others, and his questions never were answered. Discussion continued. First Selectman Maynard noted that the Board of Selectmen will be reviewing CIP budget shortly and will be requiring that some departments provide specific information. The discussion continued. Selectman Maynard indicated there appeared to be a miscommunication regarding Selectman Hoffman's questions, and then they moved on to another public participation. So, I moved that we amend the minutes to read the way I read them. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, all those in favor? Who else? Andy, are you voting? Okay. And I would move to approve the minutes then, the regular minutes of February 7th, 2018 as amended. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I move the Board of Selectmen meeting recess for a town meeting and reconvene after the completion of the town meeting. We have a lot of people here, so find a seat. I don't know.
Do you know if it did?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Okay, thanks.
And there will be separation outside.
Okay. I'm going to pass out the items because usually we have people read the items. So, item number one to consider referendum hours. This is the town meeting.
No, it's on the back.
That's the rest of it.
There's an item here for computers for the school system. Tax exemption for farm buildings. Yes, if you'd like to. All right.
Looking for volunteers.
I'm looking for volunteers.
This is actually to make the motion? No, I thought it was a copy.
Oh, okay. Make the motion to have the agenda, or have the referendum from 6 to 8 o'clock. Anybody want to read that?
Yeah, I can make that.
And how about the farm ordinance? Who wants, somebody want a farm ordinance? The last one is selling property on Wells Road. Anybody want to do that?
I have a question. What's your new job?
That's true.
So what is
Ask
the
questions.
big-
And then we'll have that If I could have your attention. Come to order. First thing we'll do is elect a moderator. That's somebody to sit in this place and do what I'm doing.
I'll nominate Bob Maynard for moderator.
Okay.
Bill Los.
Second.
All right. Is there another nomination?
Make motion to close nominations.
Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of me being the moderator, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I'll be the moderator. So, okay, who seconded Rebecca's motion to close the nominations? Did anybody do that?
Close enough.
Close enough. Rand said he did. All right, so now, if you could read, Kim, to read the notice?
Yes. Town of East Windsor, public town meeting notice. The legal voters of the town of East Windsor are hereby warned that a town meeting will be held at the Town Hall, 11 Rye Street, Broadbrook, Connecticut, on Thursday, March 21st, 2019, at 7:30 p.m. for the following. Item 1, to consider and vote on the recommendation of the Board of Selectmen pursuant to Connecticut General Statutes 7-9B, that the hours for the referenda held by the town of East Windsor in the calendar year 2019 will be held from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. Item 2, to consider and approve the sale of .52 acres located at 132 Wells Road, East Windsor, map/block/lot 095/24/054 to James A. White in the amount of $2,000. Item 3, to consider and approve the purchase of 16.4 acres located at 29 Scantic Road, East Windsor, map block lot 075/32/001B in the amount of $16,000 from the Open Space Fund. Item 4, to consider and approve a supplemental appropriation in the amount of $204,260.98 from the fund balance to the Board of Education capital for the purchase of computers. And item 5, to consider and approve the ordinance establishing a tax exemption for farm buildings under section 12-91C of the Connecticut General Statutes, dated at East Windsor, Connecticut, this 13th day of March 2019, East Windsor Board of Selectmen.
Thank you. Now what I'll do is I'll read a statement of eligibility to vote. So these are who can vote. It's required. At any town meeting or other other than a regular or special town election or any meeting of any fire, sewer, or school district or any other municipal subdivision of any town incorporated by any special act, any person who is elector of such a town may vote, and any citizen of the town of the United States of the age of 18 years or more who jointly or severally is liable to the town, district, or subdivision for taxes assessed against him on an assessment of not less than $1,000 on the last completed grand list of such town, district, subdivision, who would be so liable if not entitled to exemption under Connecticut's General Statute Subdivision 17, 19, 22, 23, 25, 26 of Section 12-81 may vote unless restricted by the provision of any special act relating to such town, district, or subdivision. So there you go, that's who can vote. Now, I'll ask that the person who has item number 1, if you could read that.
Denise Terry, 2309 Canyon Ridge Drive. So item number 1 reads, to consider and vote on the recommendation of the Board of Selectmen pursuant to CGC 7-9B that the hours for referenda held by the town of East Windsor in the calendar year 2019 be held from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. I move the foregoing resolution be adopted.
I'll second that motion. Bill Wilson.
Okay. Is your discussion?
Sure sounds like.
Close your watch.
All right. Any questions or anything? All right, then, all those in favor, raise your hand. Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Second item.
Richard P. Pippin Jr., 37 Wall Road, to consider and approve the sale of .52 acres located at 132 Wells Road, East Windsor, map/plot/lot 095/24/054 to James A. White in the amount of $2,000. I move the foregoing resolution be adopted.
Is there a second? Okay, thank you. Discussion? Yes?
What is the purpose of this sale and?
This lot is wet, so it really can't be built on. And this was taken by foreclosure with taxes. And so the town owns this property. We have been trying to sell it for a while, and the first person who came in did offer $6,000 for it if it perked, if he could build a house on it, and it doesn't. So now a neighbor offered $2,000 for the lot next to his. And actually, we at the Board of Selectmen said, no, we want $2,000 plus legal costs, so we wanted $3,200. And the gentleman said no, he would pay the legal costs, but he was not going to pay more than $2,000, and we don't want the lot, and he might as well have it, so we'd like to sell it to him for $2,000. So, yes.
What is the benefit to him of owning it?
Just that he owns the lot next to his house.
Does it increase the saleable value of his home?
Well, if it's worth $2,000, it would increase the taxes to the town.
But the saleable value, when he sells it, will it increase his ability to profit significantly higher than $2,000?
That's up to the assessor when she assesses the property, but I would suspect it would definitely be higher than its current assessment.
So why is the town willing to accept only $2,000 for it?
Well, that's what the town, he's not going to, there's no one else to sell it to, and he's not willing to give us more. We kind of had a negotiation. The Board of Selectmen agreed to sell it for $2,000. Yes, Paul.
Paul Anderson, 89 Main Street, Broadbrook.
I think the idea is it'd be a lot better to have property being taxed than sitting idle and we own it, and it's not doing anything, we can't use it for anything. So that's the purpose behind it. You can only sit on saleable property just so long before you're losing more money than it's worth. And I think that's the criteria.
So what would that property be taxed at?
Whatever the assessor deems is taxed at, the assessor has to make that judgment. That's her job.
And you didn't get any information from her in advance to
No.
present tonight?
No, I didn't. Further questions? Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand. Opposed? Okay. Item number 3.
Okay. John Burnham, 178 Scannick Road. To consider and approve the purchase of 16.4 acres located at 29 Scannick Road, East Windsor, map block lot 7532-1B, in the amount of $16,000 from the Open Space Fund. I move the foregoing resolutions be adopted.
Is there a second? Okay, Paul Anderson, second. Okay, discussion. Yes.
Thank you. My name's Al Rodriguez. I live at 6 Mahoney Road in East Windsor. I've been here for over 50 years in town. Number one, I'm opposed to buying this useless piece of property. Okay? It was a blunt statement. But after reading the minutes of the Board of Selectmen of December 20th, 2018, there was a lot of discussion from the selectmen. There was a lot of people that were against it, yet the resolution was to move it forward to this particular thing. But what I find interesting is some of the statements that were made by some of the selectmen. One of the selectmen, if the town doesn't buy this, it will become houses. It felt the town has the money to open space. He cited the town has tapped the money once, and that's, Selectman Hoffman noted that after the town purchased the Rice Street property, there will be $40,000 left in the open space. Through a lot of discussion, pros and cons from the selectmen, most of them were cons. There was one area of discussion that it should be appraised by an appraiser. It would cost $3,000 to have it appraised. I don't really think you need an appraiser when you have an assessor in town, that all you have to do is go to the tax department and you'll know that it's only worth $3,000. And it has a revenue of $104 a year for taxes. Why would you pay $16,000 for property that's only worth $3,000? I don't think any wise investor would do that for property or any other thing. It's all wetlands. It has no possibility to develop now or in the future. It will be the same in the next 100 years, except the trees will be bigger and be wetter. There's the waste of the taxpayers' money. We can't even take care of the signage on the Sabonis Landing. Have you looked at that signage over there? You can't even read it inside. The postings you can't read, nobody's taking care of things, so why have more open land that you can't take care of? We have other open spaces in town, but nobody really knows about it. Down on Scannick Road, somewhere around number 265, there's supposed to be a road that goes down to the Scannick River. Have you ever seen it or tried to go down there?
Grew up on it.
Huh? You grew up on it?
That road, the bridge down, the bridge above.
What number is it at?
Well, I grew up on 265.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
So how do you get down to the river?
There's a ranch house.
But nobody goes there.
Yeah.
Nobody goes down there.
The road's still there.
Again, it's useless land that we own, that nobody appreciates or has a use for it. Okay? Why, again, why would you spend $3,000 on appraisal when you know that the assessment is only $3,000? Stop wasting your time and town money on this parcel. Don't buy it. Finally, stop trying to restrict residential development in town, because the first statement I mentioned is, wow, if we don't buy it, there's gonna be a house built on it. Big deal, if it was buildable, but it's not buildable, it's wet, there's a scope of property there. We have plenty of open space around here. If you just take a ride around town, we may not own the open space, but there's thousands of acres of open space that you can just appreciate the beauty of it without having to pay for it. The town bought the developing rights of the Plantation Road to prevent housing. It didn't happen in the past 50 years, but about 50 years ago, Legistar owned that property. He didn't build on it either. He died, and his wife sold the property to the tobacco people. So now we bought the developing rights, and all we did was enhance the owners with $1 million. And we have nothing for it. If we keep restricting development of residential uses, all we're going to end up with in town here is old houses, old people, 55 and over projects, and convalescent homes. We need new people, we need young people in town. We need development, of residential development, to keep bringing this town up. Look around in other towns, South Windsor, Ellington, they're not afraid of it. The starting home prices in South Windsor, new homes are $400,000. And you know what, with everything they're doing there, the tax rates are no more than ours, than what we have. We bought the property on Reservoir Road, adjacent to Windsorville Road. Why? To protect it from encroachment of development, with the potential of having the town hall, the schools, and everything else. We've got a dog pound, dog park on it, so it's nice. But we're restricting ourselves. Let this town grow. My gosh, look around. You have old people, myself included. You need young people to brighten up the structure. A farmer, if he doesn't replenish his fruit trees, the old ones grow old and non-reproductive. You need youth, you need people. Stop wasting money on land such as the 16 acres has absolutely no use, will never develop, you'll never have a priority use of it. You have your walking trail across the river that goes down. You don't need it. Simple. Thank you.
Okay, yes. Nancy.
I would like to offer an opposing view. I'm Nancy Masters, Rice Street, member of the East Windsor Historical Society, and I'm in the process of writing two $25,000 grants over a 2-year period to build walking, snowshoeing, hiking, tractor-ready, hay wagon-pulled trails down to the Scantic River on the 40 acres we have just purchased adjoining the Historical Society. And our land at the Historical Society goes right to the river, and it ends just about where the Osborne Mill was, which was the center of our town and our economy. And the river was navigable from the Connecticut River up to there. And I'm hoping to put in these trails as an asset to East Windsor for every age limit. And if you can't walk them, then we'll put you on a tractor hay wagon and bring you down there with picnic tables, hopefully with the American Heritage River Commission We will put another pull-in takeout for canoeing and kayaking on the Scantic River. It's just a fabulous resource in this town. The River Commission has done an admirable job of, over the years, going in on a monthly basis, cleaning out the downed trees. And this 16 acres maybe is not buildable, maybe not walkable, but it is preserving land for us, my grandchildren, for the next century. And it's $16,000 out of a budget, which is probably this much. I think we need to preserve all the land we can on either side of the river for our future generations and into the next century.
As a rebuttal to the preserving that parcel of land, okay, on Scannick Road. In the next 100 years, whoever owns it will not be able to do anything with it. It will be preserved by its own natural basis, because you can't do anything with it except go down there and walk with boots in wetlands. And when I say wetlands, if you went down there today or yesterday or next week, you will need rubber boots to walk that particular part of the land. It's absolutely useless.
And we can't walk the other side of the Scantic River because there are landowners with land who have said we cannot walk on it. So the trails that were formed on that side of the river are of no use. They just stop dead because of insurance.
Okay, I think we'll let other people talk.
That's it.
Yes.
Denise Terry, 2309 Canyon Ridge. Who currently owns that property?
Someone called Sabonis.
Barbara Sabonis.
Mm-hmm. And she donated the land for Sabonis land.
Yes.
And we just finished having a conversation about how it's better to have land having taxes paid on it than it is to have land that the town owns that's not getting taxes on. Why does it not apply to this parcel?
It could and it couldn't. And I'm going to talk a little about this too. You know, we're going to let other people talk before. I was for it initially, and then Al came into my office. I talked to him, so I actually walked the land. And the reason I was for it initially, this is 16 acres of land. It's right along the Scantic River, so if you kayak down the river, you could get off and get on the land. But when I walked the land just a few days ago, it is overgrown. It's very wet in some places. There's brooks running through the thing. So I can see Al's point, but then again, and the only reason I would buy it for the town is it's 16 acres adjacent to the Scantic River. We do a lot, as Nancy said, with the Scantic River. This is on the west side of the river, and I believe you're on the east side of the river. There's a little difference. So it's a good discussion we have. I personally, whatever the town decides is fine with me.
If the current landowner can't build on it, then what's the need for the town to buy it? It's just gonna stay wetlands.
It's true, they could use it for hiking if they wished, or...
I mean, I'm hearing it's not really hikeable.
She's very elderly.
Well,
and maybe
you'd have to go in there with a brush hog or something to clean it up. There were prickle bushes in there. So, well, let's see if somebody else wants to say something. Paul?
Paul Anderson, 89 Main Street. That land is along the Scantic River, and the public cannot walk on that land because it's private land. It is walkable along the river, and that's the point. And it's adjacent to public land now. You can't expand your public access without owning the land. Private land is not available. Just because somebody allows somebody to walk on it doesn't make it open to the public. We own it, it's public. The funding for this is not coming out of tax money. Open space funding is paid for by developers. That's where the funding comes from. When they cannot provide open space in the development, they'll give us cash in lieu of open space so we can buy open space somewhere else. This is somewhere else. So I'm 100% in favor.
Okay, anybody else? Andy?
I'm opposed to it also. When the town considered it initially, Steve Dearborn and I walked that property. It is absolutely wet. Nothing can be built on it. I talked to the people in River Heritage and asked them whether it had value to them. And the answer was they have a lot of other property that they are trying to develop along the river currently, and they wouldn't get to that for an awful long time. I really think we could invest our money in something a lot better than that land. $16,000 for that property is outlandish.
Okay, yes.
Hi, I'm John Mardell, I live on Warwick Road. And my problem with this is, yes, it's considered wetlands right now, but if a developer buys it, I've seen areas like where you live,
Yeah.
that was considered wetlands at one time, and now there's 100 houses there. So think about what could happen if a developer buys it and can redistribute the water and make it not so wet. Then they can develop on it, and that's the problem with wetlands, because if you can put in the money, you can build on it and get it, the zoning changed and everything. So considering it wetlands now doesn't ensure that it would stay that way and that nobody could build on it if someone else bought it. And the fact that someone else mentioned that it's not coming out of our taxes, that developers have given us this money, I think we need to use it for something like this.
And just to clarify that, when a developer comes in and wants to have a subdivision, the planning and zoning department says, well, now you have to put some land aside for open space. But if you don't want to put part of your development aside for open space, then you have to give us so much money. I'm not sure how they determine that. And oftentimes the developer will give the town money for open space, and that's a separate fund and has to be used to purchase open space. So it isn't tax money, it's kind of a fund to purchase open space. And we'll come back to you, but is there anybody else who hasn't spoken? Yes?
Albert Grant, 128 Melrose Road. I think this is a connecting piece in the riverbank.
Yes.
And you don't get to buy connecting pieces very often. You kind of have to pay what they're asking for it. $16,000 is a lot of money for 16 acres of property. It has steep slopes, which is not buildable, but it's walkable if you go up the slope. So I think it's valuable to get these pieces when you can get them, and hopefully we'll connect trailways and just greenways along the river where you can walk there without having somebody tell you to get off.
Okay. Yes, you.
Hi, Mark Weldon, Walker Road. There's a misconception. I used to do engineering work for Connecticut Natural Gas. I used to be responsible for pulling permits for wetland permits that we would do construction in. There's a difference between wetlands and floodplain. That land, I haven't surveyed it myself and looked at it. I haven't looked at it from a professional standpoint. But by the plant growth that's there, the flat part of that that's near, that extends out from where the sign is going south, is a floodplain area, definitely. It's a place where a 100-year flood would go up and fill that in, just like it does in Riverside Park in Hartford. It happens every year, and the town of City of Hartford uses it to play bocce and cricket, all kinds of things, all the rest of the year. Wetland designation is a type of soil. I have 21 acres on Rollicott Road, and front of mine has a wetland designation. It's whether or not the soil underneath will allow water to go through it when it's not frozen. It'll build up, it'll go down. If it won't go down, even when it dries out everywhere else, because it's clay or something like that underneath. That makes it a wetland soil, and they grow certain types of plants, and it takes a professional engineer to designate something to be a wetland. And you can work within wetlands by adhering to permits. You have a wetland commission in town, and they do this frequently. You can do certain things. You cannot build a house in a floodplain without diverting the floodplain and creating the same volume of area in another area. That's a much more expensive thing than the cost of the property would be. If you were to try to build a house on that area, you'd have to build it up, and you'd have to take land from someplace else and shrink the volume of the 100-year floodplain of the river somewhere else in order to compensate so it doesn't create an area where you filled it in, and now it's going to push it up against everybody else that owns land in the river. That's the way, you know, if the feds and everybody came in and reviewed this, if you wanted to build a structure in the floodplain, it would be very difficult to do. Just a definition difference.
No,
just because something's wet doesn't make it a wetland. Just because it's wet doesn't mean it's a floodplain either.
Somebody else want to contribute?
Yeah, Bob, I'd like to clear the misconception on one statement that was made here. Where you live, none of those houses are in the wetlands, and none of the wetlands was disturbed. And Mr. Giorgio spent a lot of money to protect the wetlands. That is not in wetlands. It should be for the record, because it's a misconception what was brought forward.
Anybody else? Yes.
One thing, Dick Sherman, 12 Allen Drive, Broadway. One thing that we're talking about, and I'm well involved with the other greenway and park in the town for trails and everything. But since I've been a little kid, I've been a fisherman. And I'll tell you, Scannick River was always a good fishing river. But because of private lands, we couldn't get in there. And if the town does buy it, and it opens it up to the trails or whatever have you, that's going to make it accessible for people like me and other people that fish. There's a lot of people that fish that river. And there's a lot of people that spend time on the river. And if you want to paddle from one end of this town to the other end of the town, you're looking at approximately 12 hours of paddling along the river. You got to have a place to get out. People go down the river for a short period of time, pull up, and picnic on the side of the river and take a break. If that's all going to be private land, you cannot do it legally. And we found that out on the other piece of property that they closed off to us that we originally had on the east side of the river, and we had a trail in there. And new family members got involved and they said, that's it. And it really messed us up. But part of it is that the sportsmen along the river and that, there's a lot of people that like to fish.
Okay, is there anybody else? Yes.
Renee Souza, 10 Race Road, further. Just question, if the property is only valued currently on our records at $3,000, and they came to the town and asked if they were interested in purchasing the land, why did we agree to $16,000 and not what the property is valued by the town?
Perhaps.
I mean, I would go back and say, you know,
yeah,
give it to us if you don't want it. $16,000, I agree with that, well, that's a lot of money for a piece of property that is just going to sit there idle.
Okay. Bob.
Bob Black, 80 Rice Street, East Windsor. From a business standpoint, it sounds like a no-brainer because the money's already there, paid for by previous developers. My concern is the evaluation of the land versus the asking selling price. And I think by defeating it tonight, we can open it up at a different time.
I think it's going to be there for a while.
I also am concerned about what it would take to access the river. Mr. Lewis and myself pay big dues and do a lot of labor to belong to a private fishing club. And Mr. Grant can tell you about his. Anyway, I'd like to see it happen at a later time.
Okay, yeah.
Well, Bill Lewis, Millers Road, Barbara Sabonis is a classmate of mine, class of 53, Elders Memorial High School. We meet once a month for lunch or breakfast. And she's going to try to sell that property just north of that, which is on a hill there. And that's going to be sold, and that goes right down the river. So that section, once she sells that to some developer, the houses, if you look on the other side of the road, they're built on houses that are on the hills, but there's water and swamps all around down the bottom. And that property, once she sells it, the people that buy it probably buy that property too at the same time. So she's offering it to the town as a, almost like, I want to get rid of it because I'm getting old and I don't want to have that property anymore and I want the money. So that piece that's on top of the hill, I'm sure she's going to sell to a developer. And they're going to put a house there because they put a house all around there.
Yep. She's
Okay.
I'm gonna make that concern.
Okay.
I'm very familiar with this piece of property. Barbara Sabonis Chafee and her sister, Marion Sabonis O'Leary, donated the 5 acres down there by the sign. And I'll address the sign. We spent many hours carving that sign on the top of that, put that plexiglass on the front. Yes, some of the fog goes in there, and on a wet day. We were not total professionals. It's still very When I was a kid, that was all open, and Mr. Sabonis actually went down there and had a hay crop on that entire piece all the way up to the pine grove. I've actually driven a tractor from the top of the hill on Sabonis' property all the way along and came right out on it. It's a wonderful place to hike. $16,000 is not a lot of money. Barbara Sabonis Chafee is very dedicated on the fact that she wants the town to enjoy this property forever. And that's why she's offered it to us at this price. $16,000 is not a lot of money. Al, to answer your question, Plantation Road Extension is the name of the road where the Wicket Bridge and the brownstone piers are still down at the bottom. And the river people have actually driven down there, and we've actually gotten out canoeing. When we canoe down to clear the trees, we get out there and drive up that hill. Have we made it's drivable. And that's great fishing. And it's a very cool historic place in the town owns. It's actually called the Plantation Road Extension. It went from Plantation Road, which the town owns on the other side, right straight across, up there, and we can get right back out onto Scanton.
Can't find it. The average individual cannot find it because it's not posted, nobody knows it's there.
Back to the other issue about maintenance. I know that this man, Dick Sherman, right here, goes around and mows all of these places. How many times a year? Down there by Osborne Mill Bridge, he cuts the grass, we put in the guardrails. Calamides and Dick and Barbara, they got the bridge built in Melrose, they've got the Scantic River State Park. It's 2 miles of hiking. Hundreds of people show up on January 1st. If we don't start planning ahead, put these pieces of the river together, it's just not going to happen. O'Leary's Sabonises have owned this property for over 100 years. It's been in this family. The next time it comes around, who knows when it's going to come around. I can't believe the negativity in this room for $16,000 that a developer gave up. And I'll tell you an example of where some of this money came from. The town received $32,000 for 4 acres for the Barber Hill Schoolhouse. We're saying take half of that money and buy 4 times the amount of land on the river, which is a wonderful, for the people that love the river. I love the river. I've always loved the Scantic River. I just can't believe that you would be so short-sighted for that kind of money when it's not even coming out of tax dollars. And I guess I'll stop there because that's what
Name again?
John Burnham, 178 Scantic Road.
Are you just holding up the wall back there? Okay. Yes.
Fran Neal, 153 Melrose Road. I used to live in Windsor. We moved to East Windsor for the rural character and for the natural wilderness that's around. I live on Melrose Road. We bought that house because It's open all around us, there's a field across the street. We have some open space behind us. And I just, growing up, as I've gotten older, every place I grew up that was open and wild is now full of houses. And this is a small speck, it's a small piece of land, but it's a tract. Everywhere you go, they're building, cutting and carving and chopping up. Farmers can't get contiguous land to grow the food that we eat. It's one small piece of land, and the money is sitting there in the open space fund exactly for the purchase of land like this. So I'm hoping that you all decide that you want to keep some open space and buy this piece of land. It's not much.
Okay, anybody else? Yeah, go ahead.
I have two questions, actually. While the $16,000 is not tax money, it is town money, and whatever you spend town money on has an opportunity cost. So there is a cost to the town of this $16,000 that then won't be available to purchase any other land that might have better use to the town as open space. This land really can't be used for much of anything, is what I'm hearing. The second point is, if you guys already know she's going to sell another piece of her property for development, and there'll be a house on that, and ostensibly, whenever she does pass or before then, she's going to sell the piece of property that her house is on, will either of those two properties eventually cut off access anyway to that piece that the town builds? Okay, just asking. I'm just asking, you know, whether access would ever be still denied because of a piece of property further on that property.
Good question, but we own an adjacent.
So I want to consider the opportunity cost. Are there currently other pieces of property in town that you would like to purchase that without this $16,000 you wouldn't be able to? That might have better use to the townsfolk in general. I mean, there may be a few hikers and a few fishermen, but is there a better use for that money that would benefit more people in the town?
I'm not aware of it. Okay.
What's the current dollar amount in that fund?
About, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, I'm gonna say 34,000.
So
it will be
taking half
left
of
once
it.
we, once we spend probably 50,000.
So a third of it?
Yes. Go ahead, Al, but this will be your last time.
Okay.
All right.
Number one, I don't know if anybody else went and got a map of that particular area. Sure, it was the river. But going back to the meeting back into December, the property is wet, it's overgrown, and there's a large wet swale going back towards Scannick River. Selectman Hoffman cited the area flooded in the 1930s, and he recalled the flooding in 1955, which water is going completely over the Scannick Road. He agreed the property brought out of Lake isn't developable. As the engineer over here mentioned, that technically it would probably fall in the flood zone, okay? Yeah, you can walk it, you can probably do all that. But once you open it up, and you remove the tree lines and everything else, you're gonna have to get flood zone permissions to do all that. Once you start breaking up the land from what it is, it's a natural cause. What do you have to get for permission from the wetlands, flood zones, and what have you, and engineering and whatever? You know, you start off with 16 acres, that's only worth $3,000, okay? Why pay more than $3,000? Once you've spent $16,000 on it, now you're gonna have to have it surveyed so you know where your property lines are, and not just depend on what's there. So you're gonna have engineering costs, you're gonna have additional costs, and whatever insurance the town puts on it, okay? The total benefits are so minimal that if the town really wants it, negotiate it down to $3,000. Or have them donate it to the town and let them get the tax rate. You know, if they sold the whole parcel, from the top down, big deal. They'll never develop it, not that area. Maybe you won't own it, maybe you won't be able to walk on it, but the people that would buy the houses would be able to. So, let's not be negative about the situation that it's gonna go to the wayside, and that, wow, you can't even go and look at it. You can look at it, you can enjoy it, you can do a lot of things. The thing is, it's overpriced. Gentlemen, everybody, folks, would you spend your own money for that? Okay?
Yeah.
You would spend $60,000 in an investment?
Absolutely.
Bring the cash out, baby.
I think that's enough. Getting out of control.
But one more item.
Can I call the question?
One more item.
Can I call the question?
No, well, that takes a 2/3 vote, and that's a lot of work, so let's.
All right. When you're talking about open space money that you get from developers, if you're not building houses, you're not gonna get open space money. Every time somebody builds 3 or 4 houses in an area where they can't have open space, they have to get $3,000 per lot to the town for open space. It's not free money, it's pocket money. So let's not be drunk sailors and just spend it foolishly. Let's spend it wisely.
Thank you. Rich?
Rick Laborious, 16 Church Street. I don't know about the price, whether it's worth $16,000 or it isn't. I would hope that the town officials would have done their due diligence in trying to purchase it if they thought it was an appropriate piece of property for the right price. So I'll give you the benefit of the doubt for that. But property along a river, property that's flood storage, property that's wetlands, has value beyond just being a, quote, useless piece of property. The flood storage, the wetlands, the diversity of the wildlife that can take advantage of the property are of some value as well. If it was a single piece of 16 acres that was sitting by itself somewhere, and there was no plan to connect other parcels to it, there was no plan to use it in a broader sense, I'd say it was a waste of money. But if it is contiguous with other property that's being developed as passive recreation and as open space, then it does have value, and I would hope we would approve the resolution.
Thank you. Rand, and then Paul, and then we can hopefully.
Stanley, 87 Rye Street. Someone told me once old men and old women plant orchards knowing they will never taste the fruit. I think anytime we have an opportunity to protect a waterway, a water course, a wildlife corridor, and we can do it cheaply today and not nearly so cheaply for future generations down the road, and it's not going to be affecting our budget, so to speak, we should seriously consider it. I'm okay with it.
Great. And Paul?
Okay. Let's not get fooled by an assessed value of $3,000. That assessed value is not a market value. That's what the assessor has determined its value for tax purposes. That is not, you can't buy anything for its assessed value. So it's more than that. The number is not the most significant item. The most significant item is we have an opportunity to get some land that has value intrinsically for the town in general, and if you give it up, all you have is money in the bank, which, by the way, is earning nothing. It's just sitting around waiting to be used. We have no other use for it right this minute. We should use it to do something valuable because opportunities don't come that often.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to be brief, and that's not my strong card. After hearing Rand Stanley, John Burnham, and Paul Anderson, I exercise my prerogative to change my mind and support the purchase of this land.
Is there anybody else that would like to vote now if we can? Yes.
Mary Hefner, 2 Napoleon Drive, and I just heard a point that I think would also sway me to be in favor of this, and that was the wildlife. 2 Napoleon Drive butts up against the Geisler's property, those houses that are there. I see deer, I see coyotes. I fortunately have never hit a deer in town, but I have seen deer be hit. We need to make sure that we preserve some land for our wildlife so that they're not running across our backyards and our roads and getting hit. Thank you.
We're going to vote now. Let me say, this is a wonderful town meeting. We should have more of these. Anyway.
We needed a larger space to accommodate people.
I agree. I didn't expect this. Okay, all those in favor of buying this property, please raise your hand. Okay, all those opposed? It's obvious that...
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. All right. Item number 4. $204,000 from school computers. Yes.
Kathy Simonelli, 71 Depot Street. Order to consider and approve a supplemental appropriation in the amount of $204,260.98 from the fund balance to the Board of Education capital for the purchase of computers. I move the foregoing resolution be adopted.
Second.
Who seconded?
Kathy
Kathy.
Billadu.
All right. Is there any discussion? Yes.
Bill Lewis, Melrose Road. Seems like we're putting computers in place of books. And I think that the computers should be put in the regular budget, the Board of Education, in place of books. At the meeting we had last night, the Board of Education said they have to replace these computers every 5 years. At that rate, they should be a line item in their budget, not a special appropriation for the computers. What we're putting out there, we're putting out robots. Kids go to school now, they don't know how to do math. I was in Big Y 2 days ago, and I bought $9 something worth of groceries. I gave the girl a $50 bill, and she had rung it up as a $20 bill. She did not how, without being on a computer, how to give me my money back. She didn't want to give me the $40 back plus the change. She only wanted to give me the $10 because she thought it was a $20 bill. And the register told her that. We're putting out computer kids out there. You go to an office. Everybody takes out their little electric device and they all read it. Nobody talks to anybody anymore. For math, you don't need your timetables. You don't need multiplication tables. You don't need division, anything else for. You got a computer there. It does it all for you. The same thing with spelling. You got self-check now. 2 months ago, I was in the same store, and the manager come up to this kid at the register and says, will you sign this piece of paper for me? High school graduate, a senior. I don't know how to sign my name. I can print it, but I don't know how to sign it. Everything's done on print now. Nobody knows how to write anymore. What we're putting out is robots. We feed them, and then we give them a computer, and they're like the little bunny that runs around. You give them something to keep them going, and they keep going, go, go, go. So these computers, I think, should be put on the annual budget, not special appropriations. Thank you.
Bob?
Well, it's a different subject, sorry. I'm all for having the proper equipment as a learning device, teaching aid, and so forth and so on, but I'm adamantly against the ways and means of getting those into the budget. I really liked the presentation the Board of Selectmen got a couple of meetings ago from the town treasurer who said, we need to have a 5-year business plan, and that includes the Board of Education.
Hi. Yes.
Sarah Anderson, 144 Main Street. I think this is phase 2 of 3, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct.
And they're critical, they're needed, they're a necessity in 2019. And I will say it again, I've said it in the past, we've taken a beating for years of 2% budgets, the budget not going through, the Board of Ed, many town committees, departments have taken a hit. Last year, we're moving forward, we have a lot of work to do, but this is crucial. This is crucial funding for an item that's a necessity. These kids have to have them. The school district has to provide them, they need them. There's no
Yes, gentleman in the back.
Michael Johnson, New Tribe Fall Road. The reason I came here tonight was for this issue. Okay, now, $204,000, second phase, but where's our ROI here? Return on investment. Okay, if you check, the school district in East Windsor is one of the lowest in the states. If you check our proficiency ratings for reading and math, one of the lowest in the state, What are these kids learning? Computers, are a necessity in this world today, but the teachers have to teach too. And when you have a school system that's rated 129 out of 151 in the state of Connecticut, computers aren't gonna fix that.
Okay, thank you.
And we're not getting our money's worth. We're just putting good money after bad with these computers.
Hey, yes.
Christina Nordell, 7 Grandview Terrace. I'm a teacher in a district that does perform very well, and I can tell you, you cannot perform well without computers. So this is an investment that has to move forward, or else our students will be just further behind. And Bradford School actually does not perform that poorly, but you just can't do it without technology. It has nothing, all of our state testing, everything our students have to do, even the assessments that they use to progress monitor are all on computers. So it's just, you cannot live without them. It's a fact.
Hey, Steve.
Steve Dearborn, 144 East Road, and a selectman that sits up there at that table and watches all these people come in here and give us all their little sad stories. I'm not against the computers. I'm against the way they try to get them from the taxpayers. They did it last year. It came in for $200-something thousand. Okay? When they got over $1 million more, when the budget was finally passed, they got $1 million more over the previous year. They could have bought those computers out of that money. Instead of coming in and taking this money like they're trying to do tonight. We had to slash and dice, and I mean, nothing is getting done in the town of East Windsor because of the cutting we did, especially to the highway department. We can't get any roads fixed to speak of. I mean, we just cut everything to death. And this year, the budget, when it goes to a vote, is going to show that the school system this year is going to ask for $2 million, which is outrageous. It's robbery. It's stealing from the taxpayers. Our population in the schools are not climbing. I've sat up there and I've asked, where is this money going? And I've never really got a real answer where the money's going. Okay? They want these computers that bad, let them take it out of their budget money. And we take this money and we put it back into the highway department so we can get our roads and stuff in order and get things fixed. And then, at the meeting we had this year, it was finally revealed to us, well, this is a three-phase deal here. They didn't tell us that on the last year. It was a three-phase deal. So now next year they're going to want another 200-something thousand.
That's in the town school, sir.
Point of order, Mr. Moderator. The conversation will be directed to you.
And they can take it out of their $2 million if they get it, if the budget passes, at like 7%. That's about where it sits right now. And it'll never pass. And I'll never vote to pass it on from that table up there, the way it sits today.
Hey, Mark?
Did he say that the total budget for education in town is going to be $2 million?
No.
No,
It went up.
Increase from last year, another $2 million.
Okay. Marie?
Yeah, I'm in favor, and would appreciate everybody in this room, to take a hard look at where East Windsor students are. We have cut the Board of Education budget every single year. We are not giving our children and our grandchildren the money and the tools that they need to move forward in life. I don't know how many of you, and I'll start over on this gentleman over here. How many times have you gone to your children to ask them how you...
Let's not engage
Okay.
in
How many times has
conversation.
somebody older than I or my age have had to go into our children and ask them how something has happened? I don't know about you, but I've got a message on my phone from my doctor's office today that's very important. And I don't know how to access their website, so I have to wait for my daughter to do it for me. There's a lot of that. The way of the future is computers, whether we like it or not. Books are going to be on the shelf, dusting. If you want to know what a word means, you look it up on Google. If you want some information from an encyclopedia, whether you like it or not, you Google to get the information. We have done a disservice year after year after year, in my opinion, to the children of this town, by not giving them what they need to move forward. We are behind, absolutely, when you look at other towns. It's because we're not affording our children what other towns are affording theirs. And we need to start doing it, or you're going to get your wish. Anyone older than I that doesn't want development in town, you're going to be stuck with what taxes are left to be paid, because young people, they're not going to stay here. And then East Windsor is not going to have a future.
Okay, Gerald?
Okay. Geraldine Corso, 23 Lindsay Lane, Board of Finance Chairwoman. They do have those computers in their budget for this year. Yes, their budget is $2 million, and it is an 8.6% increase. Last year and this year, we looked at them financing it or buying it outright. We have a general fund that does need to be spent down. The interest that they would have paid to put those into their budget and lease was outrageous, when we could just take the money that we do have and have them pay outright for it. It was not fiscally responsible for them to lease it. So that is why we are putting this forward.
Yes.
I'm Brenda Crockett, 10 Rockville Road, and I didn't even know the subject was coming up tonight. I'm not on the board of anything. I just came here to support the farm vote for my father-in-law. But I want to say that if there's concerns about the education budget being mismanaged or whatever people are thinking that's negative, the kids should not have to pay for that. Somebody should be addressing that at the Board of Education level or wherever you address that kind of thing. But and I agree with Mr. Lewis or whoever said that kids nowadays, there's so much they can't do manually because of the way of the world, the way that things are changing. But for us to punish them by not giving them something that I'm hearing is desperately needed, other than just hearing my children at home saying my computer's so slow, this thing's so old, I would have never even known that this was happening tonight. But to punish our kids, or to make it sound like these money-hungry people that are asking for this are stuffing it in their own pockets, as kind of the equivalent to running a fundraiser for the good of the cause. And people don't want to give it to you like you're receiving it personally. These people aren't receiving it personally. They're fighting for it for the children. So, again, I think if people feel that the education budget, $2 million or whatever anybody's saying it is, I have no idea, is being mismanaged, then they should take that up at a different level. But to hurt the kids with something they need, and obviously there's no other way to get it, it's wrong. This town is not going to grow. People are going to leave. We came here from another town. My children started in this town. What they had already completed the beginning of the prior year in a town next door. So we need to get up with the times. We need to realize we have to make an investment in order to get the return that we're seeing in the education in other towns. And I think it's ridiculous to even be having this conversation, personally. They need it. You don't like the way the budget's being managed at the school, or Board of Ed, go handle that there. But they're asking for money. They need money for our kids. I don't know why we would say no. I don't get it. So if somebody could tell me why, I'd love to hear it.
Kathy Billadieu, 343
Okay.
Scannick Road, Board of Education member for
for, I believe, 10 years, maybe more. I just have 2 things to say. Maybe it's 3. First of all, obviously, I'm in favor of this. This is the second phase of a 3-phase issue. Number 2, our children are taught penmanship in school. They do know how to read and write longhand. And number 3, I do believe that every single year we give, the Board of Education gives the Board of Selectmen their budget with line-by-line detail, something that we're not even required to do by law, but we do because we're transparent. And for a member of the Board of Selectmen to suggest that he's never seen where our money goes is an interesting thing to hear. And I would more than willingly welcome that selectman or any other member to come to a Board of Education meeting and see what we're doing with the money. Your eyes will be open, and you will be very surprised to see what we do with very little. Thank you.
Steve Friedman, 40 Windsor BOS Road. Not only am I live in town, but I'm also a school employee. And I have to say, being in the school system for 34 years, I was here at the meeting last night and there needs to be a correction made. Someone stated that we're coming in at almost 9% for the budget, but they're still forgetting to field and realize that we went into this school year already in the hole from special education students that had moved into town. Those students that come to us in our towns, the money that was budgeted from the previous towns does not follow the students to the district. So now you're putting out money out of our budget that was not planned for because the planning is done this time of year. So come September, if we have, say, 10 more special ed students move into the schools, that money from the school they're coming from was budgeted. Ours is not budgeted to accommodate kids that we don't know are coming in. As far as the computers go, when you look at the school board budget and the number of jobs that are looking to be cut and the supplies that we are presently without because the funds are not there, and to know that I live and work in town and I'm paying taxpayer dollars, I'm in support of the school board budget going forward. I'm in support of those computers for these kids. It is part of a phase that was agreed upon last year and needs to continue to go forward. I'm for the computers.
Thank you. Yes.
I have a few practical questions. So the 200,000 that was given last year also went to computers?
Different grades. Different
grades. And so how many computers are they purchasing with $200,000?
Well, I'll back up a little bit. With $200,000, they're purchasing actually 275 for students and 33 for teachers. There's different costs to those. But what they're also doing is they were I guess leasing the computers, but as Geraldine pointed out, it's more cost effective to buy them. And what this Dell computer will do, and they're buying Dell computers, for the price they give them a 5-year warranty on the computer. And if for each computer, if the computer is destroyed, run over by a car or something, they'll give them a new computer. It's one shot. They also repair any things like if the screen's broken, if you drop the computer. So it's cheaper to buy the computers with a 5-year warranty. And what they're going to do, they have to buy. They're going to spend $200,000, approximately $200,000, 3 years in a row, and they have 5-year warranties. So then they'll have 2 years off, and then they'll have to buy it, do it again. So that's generally the cost of the computers.
So what is being planned to not have this come out of special appropriations again in 5 years for the next, for all of them to be replaced again on a rolling basis?
Right, there is a pattern of developing now. This is the second year of a 3-year purchase and then 2 years off. Right now, and maybe Geraldine could address this better than I can, but we have a robust fund balance. That means we have, in a sense, a rainy day fund that's bigger than it needs to be, and it's kind of hurting the town. And so So we're taking the money out of that fund balance, which means we don't have to use taxes. So we don't have to raise taxes. So it's not in the budget, so your taxes won't go up this year because we have this extra money, we're taking it out. Now, down 5 years from now, we might not have that money, so we might have to raise taxes. We might have it. So
I do have one other question, one other statement. I've actually read quite a few studies recently that show that school systems that rely on computers rather than textbooks are finding that their students are not learning as well and not doing as well on standardized tests, and a lot of school districts are returning to purchasing textbooks. What have been the conversations about that so far? And why is it incumbent on the district to provide every student with a computer?
That's a decision that was made that they thought it would be in the best interest of the students to do that. In fact, a long time ago.
So it's not a state law or anything?
No.
You said it's incumbent on us to provide them. Who decided that?
The Board of Education.
At the meetings that you can
Okay.
Do you want me to address anything else?
No, I think the sooner we vote, the better.
Can I make one?
Sure.
I would just like to welcome anyone to listen to the Board of Education presentation to the Board of Finance last night, if they would like to know where the money's going. The information is out there. It's out there constantly. We're trying to be as transparent as possible. As Kathy said, line by line, we put our spreadsheet out every budget season, and it's readily available. So if you have any questions on any of that, we're happy to answer them for you.
And Bob, can I piggyback on that? Because
Sure.
next week is our public hearing. You guys rolled out your budget and the Board of Education rolled out your budget. And before we can do anything with it, we have to have a public hearing, and it's next week in this room at 7 o'clock. And half the time, there's about 10 people there. So we welcome as many people as will come and give us their thoughts. That's what we want.
Good.
I think it has to be a collaborative thing for people in town and different boards and departments and everything to work together to make sure these kids have what they need to be at an even level with all the other towns around us, because I don't think they are. Also, the special needs, this town is known for its special needs help in the schools. I run a licensed child care in town. I've actually had parents tell me that they purposely moved to this town with children who had autism or different you know, things where they had special needs, because of the reputation of this town to meet the needs of their children. So where you were saying over here about, you know, when those children move to this town, the money that was budgeted for them in the town they came from does not move with them. So I think, you know, maybe all these people, and then there's so many elderly people in this town that have so much good insight and so much, there's so much we can learn from them. Maybe they can attend some of these boards, make suggestions, recommendations how to help, and instead of it always being this kind of thing. I think it would just help our kids. It would help the stress level. These meetings would not last this long. We'd be all set.
It's a good meeting, though.
Yeah.
Thank you. Paul.
Paul Anderson, 89 Main Street. This is a short-term solution to a long-term problem, and we're doing it because it's appropriate. In the long term, we're not going to solve any problems unless people get behind the charter revision and get rid of this 2% nonsense that restricts our possibility of having a proper budget passed. Everybody's going in with their needs and doing them as legitimately as they can, and the first thing that happens before the public ever gets to vote on anything is the Board of Selectmen cut it back to try to get to that 2% magic number, which is a dumb number. And then the Board of Finance does their hacking, and then the public gets their first chance to vote. The public never gets to vote on what people ask for, which is nonsense. And this group in town, or a bunch of people in town, they're probably not a group, they're just people, that think if they vote the budget down, we automatically go to this 2% nonsense, is killing us. Long term, you can't live that way because you can't survive at 2%. It's not possible. It's got to go away. So you can't fix it here, but you can fix it with the charter revision, which is coming up. So I suggest you put your efforts into the long-term solutions to try to make things better down the road, because next year we wouldn't be having a problem. Thank you.
Further, Rich.
There's a Louis Armstrong song that has a line in it about children, and it says, they'll learn much more than we'll ever know. And it talks about the generational shift and how much these young people now are learning and things that we were never exposed to when we were young. And it's absolutely true that if you complain about the lack of progress in our school system here in East Windsor, put your money where your mouth is, because we've had a historical lack of support for public education in East Windsor. It's time that changed. We need to give our kids adequate resources to succeed in today's world. If we keep going to that 2%, you're absolutely right. It just doesn't get us anywhere. So please support the resolution.
I'd add that 2% is part of the reason why there have not been textbooks purchased in our schools in many years. And they had to be thrown out because they don't have the last 5 presidents in them. So
we could leave one out.
Laptops allow students to get current information, and it stays current. It doesn't outdate itself the way a book does, a hardcover book does. So.
Okay, yes.
Do I need to restate my name? Okay. Mary Hebner, 2 Napoleon Drive. Just to step away from the money for a minute and talk about how the kids are using these computers. And it's been said a little bit, but I wanted to give you a couple of specific examples. I have an 18-year-old that graduated from East Windsor High School last year. I have a 13-year-old, and we are in the process of deciding whether to send her to East Windsor High School or another school where she will have exposure to a lot more subjects than she can get in East Windsor. And the reason is, we just don't have a lot of kids in this town. And there are classes that they cannot offer. So my son learned French for a year by taking it on the computer in a moderated classroom. I've complained to people about this. There were 7 languages being taught during the same class period, but they were all learning it online. I have also heard stories of other students that have excelled. I believe one of them was valedictorian or salutatorian, who wanted to take some classes, did it by self-study by using a computer. And somebody else mentioned it is a new skill set. Computers are the future. The kids need to learn how to use this stuff, and they need to learn to use it correctly, which they are getting in the school system. How to use Google, how to trust or not trust the internet, those types of skills. But the other example I wanted to give was, when my husband was 28 years old, he learned CAD so he could become a drafter designer. My daughter today competed in the invention convention. She has learned to use a variation of CAD. She learned that when she was 11 years old. This is what computers can do for us. She also was teaching me some things last night about some of the Microsoft Office applications that I thought I was really good at. She was doing her presentation in PowerPoint. She knew how it worked. I haven't learned this. There's a big age gap in town. I just want to point out, I'm right in the middle. I didn't learn computers until I started working. And the kids are just, I mean, this is the future. They need to know this. They need these computers. In the high schools, they get to bring those home so they can do their homework. In the middle school, they don't bring them home, and that's actually been a challenge for us because we have to make sure that she has a computer. And fortunately, my family does, but I know there are families in town that don't have them. So the kids have to have them in the school. The teachers are using it as a tool instead of books. It is effective, and they are learning things that they need to know.
Okay, okay, I'd like to vote. So, all those people in favor of funding $204,260.98 for computers, please raise your hand. All those opposed? Again, it passes. Thank you. Okay, and the final item, tax farm bill, tax exemption for farm buildings.
Yep, Brenda Crockett, 10 Rockville Road, Rob. To consider and approve the ordinance establishing a tax exemption for farm buildings under section 12-91C of the Connecticut General Statutes. I move the foregoing resolutions be adopted.
Is there a second?
Second.
Who's that?
Randy
Randy?
Rightly, 22nd
Randy
Harrington
Rightly.
Road.
Clark?
Clark Cloutier, 3 Steeplechase Road. I have 2 questions. I'd like somebody to explain to me the rationale that went into giving a $100,000 tax exemption to a tree farmer or a tobacco farmer, or in fact all the farmers. And the other question is, has the town kind of estimated how much tax money we would lose? I find it kind of odd that we're sitting here arguing over getting computers for our kids, and we want to give tax money to somebody that they're hardworking people, but everybody else is hardworking, and we're not getting any tax exemption. So I wish somebody would try to explain that to me, why they deserve it.
Al Rodrigue, 6 Mahoney Road, East Windsor. In conjunction with what you're talking about, I have some of the same questions actually. How will it benefit the town? Number 1 question. And I went to the town assessor and I asked, how many barns, buildings, structures, or any that would be exempt, or that would comply with this exemption? How much tax revenue would be removed from the town tax roll? In just a general discussion, she was trying to compile based on known farms and what have you. And there's a criteria, number 1, for that exemption. You have to be a farmer, you have to have a certain farm tax revenue and what have you. So there is a criteria, but we couldn't get through it, quite honestly. Anyway, in general discussion, based on what information she had on hand, it was somewhere between $15,000 to $25,000 that would be exempt in tax revenue. Where will the town make up that difference? When you try to pass your budgets, you're talking about computers and what have you, maybe $25,000 is not a lot of money. But somebody else is going to have to kick in that money. It's going to be me, you, and everybody else. Farmers are in business like any other business. They have their advantage and disadvantage like anyone else in business. Why should I share these burdens or the reward of their work? I applaud them for being farmers. It's a hell of a job. But they have several other exemptions as farmers that we're not aware of, or we may not be aware of. But if you look into it, there's multiple exemptions for them as farmers. This is another kick-in which would come out of everybody else's pocket. Because when you're giving an exemption, you should be getting something in return. And we're not getting anything in return. We just gave one farmer $1 million for, the developing rights. Oh, that's my point. Yes.
Brenda Crockett, 10 Rockville Road. This is what I came for. And what I want to say is, here's what you get in return. You get a town. This is Connecticut Valley Tobacco Land, right?
Part of it. Windsor's River.
These farms, some of them are struggling very badly. What you get in return when you sacrifice whatever, 15, 25,000 in revenue that you're losing, I don't know all the numbers, I'm going by what you said because you did your homework, I didn't. But is you get, when you're sharing that burden with these hardworking farmers, and you're right, you're saying that you have compassion for what a hard profession it is, but until you've done it, you really don't know how hard of a profession it is. Those people are up at 5 o'clock in the morning, they're passed out in their recliner at 9 o'clock at night, and it's nonstop. You're dependent on the weather, the season, the soil, bugs, blue mold, you name it. And if you're not having some kind of break somewhere, what ends up happening is those farms that have hurt because of all of these conditions then end up losing their primary crop. So then they're at the mercy of finding ways to utilize their land, their barns, their equipment to still maintain a farm that you enjoy living in this town, that we all enjoy living in this town. I don't know about you, but for me, driving through this town and seeing the tobacco barns, seeing the fields, seeing that soil all plowed up in the spring and all the crops growing all summer, the harvest in the fall, that's what you benefit when you share that burden. So to me, this one's a no-brainer. It's not like we're talking about, making or breaking this town. Are we willing to give the farms in this town the same consideration that, from what I understand, several, if not all other towns in Connecticut receive? And we're in the prime growing land. So who are we to say, oh, I'm sorry, guys, yeah, you've been working really hard and we appreciate that, pat on the back, but we're not going to help you out. A farmer is somebody who their handshake is as good as a signed contract. Better yet, it's usually better than a signed contract. So for you to sit here and say, oh, should we help them out? Where are we going to recover that? Well, let's just find a way. Because otherwise, these farms are not going to exist.
Are we talking about consolidating?
Okay, let's not now, wait a minute, this isn't.
We're talking about, I am just giving my taxpayer, citizen, concerned about maintaining the rural beauty of this town, my input, my opinion, just like everybody else here is doing. That's all I'm doing.
I just want to remind people that we follow Robert's rules, and when a person has the floor, they have the floor, and they should not be interrupted. And then I'll call on somebody else, and they can speak and not be interrupted. So I will call on somebody else. And Rick?
Rick Laborious, 16 Church Street. Is there, first question, did the town research the amount it would cost?
I don't
That
know
was my
the amount it would cost.
Second, if a farm like that huge dairy farm that just went up in Ellington were to move to East Windsor, would all their structures be exempt under this?
Again, I don't know.
Ellington has it.
And is there any limit on the amount of the exemption or the value of the property to be exempted?
Yeah, I think it's a $100,000 limit on it. But
on each farm or each structure?
I don't know.
Each structure.
Yeah, could I just ask Albert, because he knows this information?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm Albert Grant, 128 North Road, I'm the chairman of the Ag Commission, so it's $100,000 per building is the limit. Farming is marginal business, and so this is an exemption in other towns in the state, allows for farmers to keep their infrastructure present.
May I ask through the chair, how many other towns allow it?
South Windsor and Ellington, as far as I know. I'm not sure about the others. But the state
That tells us 2 out of 106.
Well, there are 2 neighboring towns.
Yeah.
And there's other ones that we sampled language from too. Plymouth is one, not close to us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Steve Dearborn.
Steve Dearborn, 144 East Road. We live in a farming community. I thought the people in this town wanted this town to stay a farming community. Country, not all built up. And people that really know me for all the years, I've been here for 66 years. There's a lot of farming around here. I guess now you can call me a I don't know, Hollywood farmer, but I do a little bit now, but this is no different than giving the tax breaks to the millions and millions of dollars businesses coming to this town. It's no different, but nobody's whining and crying about that. Give a company that spends so many million and you get 7 years, 3 million or less, I believe it's only 2 years, but they're all getting humongous tax breaks. And they're running businesses that really make money. Farmers don't make a lot of money. They only farm because they love it. All right? Basically, that's why they farm. They love it. I love it. I wish I could go back and farm 500 acres again. But it's because they love it. It ain't about the money. They love the dirt. They love being in it. And they deserve a break. I mean, what the hell? We're talking nothing here for money. We're giving the big businesses that are coming, which they wouldn't be coming unless we were given the tax breaks. So down the road after 2 years or 7 years, we'll be collecting full max on the tax. They deserve to get a tax break. And with the farm equipment, that's $100,000. But that's statewide also, believe me. Today, a tractor's over $100,000. That's obsolete. They should jack that up to like $250,000 for farm equipment, because that's what this stuff costs today. But these guys, these farming guys deserve that little bit of a break. That's peanuts.
Thank you. Anybody else? Glenn?
Glenn Wright, buddy. 27 Harrington Road. 100 years been farming here. You want to know why we should give us a break? You want to know what you get out of it? I'll explain it to you in a nutshell. Everybody in here ate today. And everybody drank. Thank you. You're welcome. Wrightley Farms alone in the East Windsor, Connecticut. Over 500,000 meals donated to Food Share. So do we need a break? We give breaks all the time. Al, you want to know what we give for breaks? We get some tax exempt on certain items. As far as what's going on here, there's no reason why this should not go through. There's no young blood in this industry. You're born into this, and you love it or you don't. There's some young blood in the back that's in town. Nobody gets into this industry ever. And so help me, everybody that ate is very welcome. And I'm really appreciative to put this through, and we really should. Thank you.
Everybody in this town works hard. I work hard. I pay $1,395 for a one-bedroom, one-bath apartment in this town. I guarantee you a lot of that's going to tax money. I'm a pastor. I work about 70 hours every week. You don't think I need a break? Everybody needs a break. Why one industry over any other? I just don't agree with it. I just don't agree with it at all.
Jason Bowser, 121 East Road. I've been an elected official in East Windsor for the last 12 years. And for the last several years, I was the chief of staff at the Connecticut Department of Agriculture. Since 2010, 20% of dairy farms in Connecticut have gone away. They've gone out of business. And that's not because they're not savvy business people. To a person, they are. That's because of factors that are outside of their control. Federal regulation and federal rules put burdens on farmers that they can't control, but they still have to make their ends meet. They still have to make their loan payments. We have no shade tobacco industry in Connecticut to speak of at all anymore. We were known for that. We have some of the best soil in the world to grow tobacco, and we don't do it anymore because that market dried up. So I think, and I have no idea what the impact is gonna be in terms of the collectible tax revenue, but having knocked on, I can say with a hand on a Bible, thousands of doors in East Windsor, the number one thing I hear from people is we need to preserve our rural character. This, and we did it earlier today when we approved the acquisition of 16 acres of farmland, or of open space land along the Scantic River. We put our money where our mouth was, and we actually took action to preserve our rural character. Helping farmers stay farming is doing exactly that. You know, they're, by and large, the average age of a farmer is 60 years old. There aren't young people who are coming into it. They're struggling to stay in business. This is a gesture that many communities in Connecticut have made, not just South Windsor and Ellenton. In every corner of this state, towns have adopted this or similar resolutions to support their farming community. And it's because once it's gone, you're never going to get it back. You can't undo a development. You're not going to see Buckland Mall become a dairy farm again. It's never going to happen. So we need to take proactive action, which is what this is, to plan for the future and to help support an industry that, as Mr. Reichley has said, feeds us all. I think this is just an absolute right thing to do for a negligible cost.
Yeah, let me see.
I think it's absolutely ridiculous and hypocritical for people who voted for a casino in this town to be saying our number one priority is to retain our rural character.
Thank you.
I kind of in between supporting farms, supporting the education system, but from the economic development standpoint of view, I'm billing personally the town, and I think the rest of the Economic Development Commission is going along with it as a progressive rural community. I think it's almost ironic that I agreed with everything that Steve and Jason have said tonight, and I urge the approval of this.
My two original questions I don't think have been answered. One, we don't have a number from the council here that how much money the town is going to lose. And if the rationale is that they are hardworking people, there is no doubt about that. Some of my best friends are farmers. They work hard. But so don't other people work hard. This woman here is paying what she pays for rent. And in fact, I got to get a little dig in here. I find it hard that you will give them a break, but you'll tax or make the people in the condos pay for a fire hydrant. We pay for fire hydrants that nobody else has to pay for. Where's the logic? How can you go to bed at night with a good conscience?
Okay, further discussion. Charlie and then Bill. What are you doing?
Yeah, I'd like to comment about this. In that, one, the question, Claude, that you had about, you know, where did the $100,000 you guys just make up that number? No, it's a state statute. That's where it came from.
It's a state statute that just authorized the town to approve it. It's not mandatory from the state legislature.
But that's the statute that they developed that says it's up to $100,000. And we're following what the state did, okay? And to talk just a moment about the farmers, you know, everybody does work hard. I've heard that, and that's true. And the farmers work hard. So it's kind of an equal there. The issue, though, that unless you've really worked as a farmer to understand that they are so dependent on weather. And tonight they said it was going to be showers. Well, you know, there weren't any. Yesterday they said snow. They said this, they said that. You know, and when you're planting a crop and you're relying on rain to come from the sky and it doesn't come, and then you have to, you know, spend money to irrigate that if you have the equipment to even do it, to save your crop, that's another expense. Some years, farmers do good. They make a profit. So they can store some of that money to buy that $100,000 tractor. But there are many years where they're in the red. They're in the red. But it's the passion for doing that. People don't start up today, well, listen, I want to be a farmer. They've grown into that. That's the big difference. They didn't necessarily choose that at some point in their life. They were grown into that. So, you know, we think it's a rural community. If we don't give them this break, and the estimate was from the assessor, it's probably around the $15,000 to $25,000. You know, there are restrictions as to what it is that's going to qualify you for. You know, someone that just has a barn doesn't mean that they can qualify to get a tax exemption. You have to show income, you have to show expense, and it is done in Ellington, it is done in South Windsor, it's done in many towns for that reason, to try and preserve the farmland, preserve the farmers, because they're under a lot of stress. As Jason said so accurately about how many dairy farmers have gone, you lose money. And without something like this, which is pretty nominal for getting some incentive for them to continue to put that next crop in, because it might be good. We might have a good rain year, it might have good weather, it might not be too hot, it might not be too cold. All those things are dependent upon what's going to come out of that ground and what you can sell. Am I right, Don? No?
You got that right.
You've got nowhere to go to change it, period. So I think everybody, in my opinion, should vote for this very enthusiastically, because it is the right thing to do to continue to maintain that the farms within the town of East Windsor. You know, South Windsor, if you obviously drive through there, you know, there's not too much farmland left. And here, you know, we have farmland, and, you know, we need to do that. You know, somebody asked a question about balers, do they come under this? Yeah, sure they do. They get that same, it's the same exemption for everybody, up to $100,000 per structure, the towns that have adopted it. And they have had it for a very long time. We should have done it many, many years ago, and it was never put in.
The other thing would have been nice to have.
Now, you haven't been recognized. Bill, do you have a, okay? I'll go with Albert, and then I'll go with you.
Albert Grant. I think it's a foresight, even more than the individual farmers that are farming now. If in 50 years there's going to be more people and less farmland, no question about it. And all those people are going to have to eat, and you're going to wonder what the heck we were thinking 50 years ago when we didn't save some of this good farmland to grow food here instead of trucking it from who knows where. It's a kind of no-brainer. The future is going to be ahead of us, and if we don't keep the resources we have, then they won't be there.
Last time.
The only thing would have been a wonderful thing if you had a fixed number from your departments and saying, this is the approximate number.
Well, I think there's 77 barns in town, but to qualify as it's been.
There is a criteria.
Yes, and we don't know that criteria as of yet. I mean, they have to earn at least $15,000 and have $15,000 expenses, and we have to see their taxes. They have to bring them to us before they would qualify, so we're not exactly sure. Okay, yes, in the back.
Jim Stroper, 221 North Road. And you have to be a legal registered farmer in the state of Connecticut to apply for that. And on the other hand, there are no unions in farming. There's no 3%, 4% guaranteed contract raise that you get every year. For the rest of your life, you have to make it happen. If you buy any land, anywhere, you will not see anyone buy land and go into farming, because you're not going to make it. You won't pay a mortgage. You cannot buy land and farm. It has to be families that bought it so many years ago that hung on to it. The movie theater's not there because they weren't making any money. Whether you like to take your kids there or not, they're not making any money. Things that don't make money stop. Period. Farmers work very hard. There's no such thing as, I have to have my own health insurance. I don't get any benefits whatsoever. I left a truck repair business because I was up to here in stress. Horse farm, I take care of people's horses, I do the 60 acres of hay, and yes, $110,000 in hay equipment. And they only want to pay me $3 for a $5 bale of hay. It just grinds you right into the pay. We do not get any guaranteed raises ever. We have no retirement. There's no plan. You make your own. You make your money, and you make your own everything. So all the people that work for the government or the education department or the police department or the fire department, it's a guaranteed raise every single year, whether you do anything or not. Farmers don't have that. We're never going to have that. I will die trying, but that's what it takes.
Bill Simon.
I'd just like to speak. I'm probably one of the few people in this room that's family history is still in agriculture. I have my grandparents, great-grandparents all farm. I'm still involved in agriculture. My 24-year professional career has been in agribusiness, some with farmers, working with farmers. I can tell you right now, a dairy farm, both my grandfathers are dairy farms. I grew up on a dairy farm. I've done everything on the dairy farm you can possibly imagine. The price of milk they're getting today is the same thing it was, or less than it was in 1980. How many people in this room in another business have made more money every year because you have to sell your product from them? Dairy farmers are price takers. Vegetable farmers are price takers. The price of a box of squash is $8. It's wholesale price. It costs that farmer $2.50 to put it in a box that's going to get thrown away when it's the grocery store. The farmer pays for that $2.50 box. 8 years ago, they were probably getting less money, more money for the same box of squash than they were this past year. Tomatoes, same thing. Sweet corn, there used to be 1,000 plus acres of sweet corn in this valley right here. I think Burnham Farms has maybe 400 acres. They're going to grow less because they can't sell the crop and they're losing money. It just doesn't work. We all, like I said, it's been said in this room, we all want to eat, we all have to eat. Farmers are getting less and less every year. Your production's moving out of the country to Mexico and other places like that. It's not staying in this area right here. We have great land in this area. We're losing it every year. We have some of the best soils. My degree in college was a master's degree in soils. I've studied soil, dirt, love dirt. We have some of the best soils in New England right here in this valley. And it's turning into, if you look at Day Hill Road, that's some of the best farmland in the whole entire country. It's now business. And it's never coming back. So, down the road, we all need to eat. Understand, I sit down with my customers every year to do budgets, what's going to cost to do business with me, what's going to cost them to produce the sugar on the farm. A lot of these guys are coming up, they're going to make $0 this year, or less, or nothing. They have insurance to help pay for some of it. Every year, farmers shut down. I meet with farmers every day. The ones that are coming to me, I've had 4 of them in the past year, come up to me and say, Bill, should I continue or should I quit? And these are young guys, my age, 40 years old. I wish I was 40 years old. 49, will be 49, or less. Telling me that they think they're just going to call it quits because they know there's no future in farming right now. I've just a take on it and a small tax exemption on some buildings to help these people maybe encouraged to stay in business a little bit longer. It's a pretty small price to pay. Food on your table for 5 years or 10 years from now. Thank you.
Rick? I'm convinced by the farmers and the Agriculture Commission and the executive director that we should do this. My criticism, though, is when we ask the questions of how much it would cost, that you didn't have an answer. And when you bring this, you as a town government, bring this to a town meeting, you should have the answers of how much it's going to cost. You should know, you knew some of the answers, but you didn't put them forward.
So this is about criticizing me?
It's the town.
Okay, criticizing the town.
I'm criticizing the town.
Okay,
the
good.
town
I don't think
presents,
that has a lot to do with the vote.
It does. Okay. And the town presents this kind of ordinance, or, yeah, I guess it's an ordinance, for consideration. It should bring all the information with it. You explained a few things later on that if you brought out in the beginning would have eliminated a lot of discussion. You said the $100,000 limit. You said how many barns there were. You said, but you didn't bring that out in the beginning. We didn't know there was a limit except probably in the resolution. There are a lot of things. You should know how many towns in the state have adopted this when you come here as a town government presenting this to the citizens.
Okay.
Yes.
Terry, I mean, Denise, Terry,
So,
this will be the last time that you speak, if
Sure.
that's okay.
I just want to say that, it's not true that farmers are the only ones who are struggling or don't get increases. I've taken a pay cut the last 6 years at my church, a sizable pay cut. I have to provide for my own pension. I don't get any pay raises. I have to pay all my own health insurance. There's a lot of people that do. We have a unique status as pastors that you're self-employed for Social Security purposes, so you have to pay both sides, but you're federally taxed as an employee. And, this year, all of the money that I used to be able to write off as unreimbursed business expenses, I don't get to write off that 12 grand anymore that I used to. We've all taken hits this year. Why should farmers be any different? I can't write off my property taxes anymore on the federal income tax. Farmers still can. All that kind of thing. Why just them?
It's about preserving the farms.
Okay. Got still a lot of people, sir.
Donald Grant, 114 Broadbrook Road. My family's been farming in town here since 1825 on the same piece of property. Before that, we were farming in the town of Windsor since 1635. So it runs deep in my family. I may very well be the last generation in my family to farm our farm in East Windsor. I have 2 daughters, neither of which are interested in continuing the farm on, as far as I know. One of them might. But other than the emotional aspects that have been brought up tonight, there are reasons why governments do things to either promote businesses or help businesses out for a variety of reasons, whether you're talking about local governments, state governments, federal governments. We have a State Farmland Preservation Act in this state that farms in this town have taken advantage of, and for good reason, because of the reasons we brought up tonight about quality of life and open space, and all of those things that people move to East Windsor to enjoy. And if you don't have people that are able to economically keep that land open and useful, growing tobacco and growing pumpkins and growing corn or growing hay, growing squash, whatever it may be, you all get to enjoy that. And I'm not doing that to hammer you over the head, I'm just saying this is the reality of it. A lot of the reason, I'm not going to get off into the weeds too far here, although maybe a little bit, part of the reason why farmers have been struggling for a long time is because after the Great Depression, the federal government had a policy that this country would never grow hungry again. And that's when they started to control prices of food items. Dairy is probably one of the best examples of that. The price that the dairy farmers that used to be in East Windsor, we were the second to the last dairy farm in East Windsor. We went out in 1990. And unfortunately, the Rapido farm went out when their barn burned down. So that's it. We have no more dairy farms in this town. There's no prospect of any coming back, probably. I mean, maybe it happened, I don't know. But the fact of the matter is, the federal government had a policy that said, we don't want people to go hungry in this country. So we're going to control the price of milk. And they use the federal milk marketing order where our price of milk is determined by the price of cheese and powder and butter in Wisconsin. It's just insane that the federal government did that sort of a thing, but they did it for the benefit of the general population of the country, and the farmers all took a hit for that across the country since that time. And that's just a small example of what it is that has happened with farming ever since then that is just so behind the curtain for the average person that goes to the grocery store and buys a gallon of milk. So all I'm saying in all of that, to sum it up, is governments can do things to help encourage certain activities amongst their residents and amongst their businesses so that the quality of life in that town is improved. And I'm asking you to pass this ordinance in order to continue that. Thank you.
Dick Beckman, 37 Old Road. Is there a copy of this ordinance here tonight? Half of these questions should have been available to the public, handed out. We would have known what the exemptions are and what the limits were. Why wasn't they out before?
There were copies out here.
Well, never saw one, Charlie. But that would clarify a lot of things. Number 2, farmers are a little bit unique besides they feed us. The people, they buy everything retail and sell wholesale. How the heck are you going to make money? Every other business buys it wholesale and sells retail. Stop and think about it. That's exactly what happens. I am for it. It won't do me a bit of good.
And here's the
Other than
ordinance.
I can eat tomorrow.
Would you like me to read it?
You're welcome.
Oh, it should have been right here on the table. That's the whole ordinance?
Would you like to hear it? I'll go as quickly as possible. Ordinance establishing a tax exemption for farm buildings pursuant to the authority granted by Connecticut General Statutes, Section 12-91C, that gives the town the option to provide an additional exemption for farm buildings. The town hereby provides that the assessor shall grant a reduction in the property tax assessment for any building used actually and exclusively in farming, as defined in Section 1-1, or for any building used to provide housing for seasonal employees of such farmer in an amount not to exceed $150,000 of assessed value of each eligible building. The exemption shall not apply to any residence except for a building used exclusively as a residence for seasonal employees. On or before the first day of November or the extended filing date granted by the assessor pursuant to Section 12-42 of the Connecticut General Statutes, the owner shall make a written application on forms as adopted by the assessor identifying each building for which this exemption is claimed. The application shall include a notarized affidavit certifying that the owner derived at least $15,000 in gross sales or incurred at least $15,000 in expenses related to such farming operation with respect to the most recently completed taxable year of such farmer prior to the commencement of the assessment year, October 1st, for which such application is made. In the event the farm is owned by one person or entity and leased to another who actually farms, then the lessee shall also file the financial affidavit, and it is the lessee's income or expenses that must meet the minimum amount. Any rental expense shall be a lessee's experience, except when paid to an immediate family member or entity owned by an immediate family member. The owner shall file an affidavit attesting to the identity of the lessee. Failure to file the application on or before the first day of November shall be considered a waiver of the right to exemption for the assessment year. Any person aggrieved by any action of the assessor shall have the same rights and remedies for the appeal and relief as are provided in the Connecticut General Statutes for taxpayers claiming to be aggrieved by the doings of the assessor.
Okay, thank you very much.
Just for clarification, Bob,
Yes,
you were saying 100,000 and that says up to 150.
that was, I think, for residents
Residences.
of
Say that again? I'm sorry.
buildings that house seasonal employees are up to 150,000.
Oh, and then the regular, like a regular bar is 100,
Yeah.
so 100, 150. Is the motion that we're voting on tonight?
Yes. That's the ordinance we're voting on that she read. We're voting for
You're voting on the whole, okay, thank you.
Okay, yes, you.
Don Ravens, 13 New Wilford. So I make a comment. Farmers also help the community out a lot. Such as I heard throughout the room, well, it ain't gonna do me much good, but I am for it. Well, how many of us rent cans from Pippins? We keep them employed, keep them doing. How many of you guys have worked tobacco to buy your first car, your first house? We supported you guys to begin with. The younger generation, not so much. But the older generation, all you guys probably work tobacco, dairy, whatever, but, Connecticut Valley Rubber, CPS, all businesses in this town, we support. When the farm goes out, it hurts them as well. So just keep that in mind.
Thank you.
Paul Anderson, 89 Main Street. It's popular. I have only been in town 48 years, so I'm a newbie. But we have an opportunity to do something good. The fact that it does not solve all problems for all people is irrelevant. You do good when you get the opportunity. This is an opportunity to do good. I'm totally in favor of this. Thank you.
Okay, good, thank you. Yes, Mark.
I grew up in Windsor. I moved to town. I've been here 35 years. Windsor was a big tobacco community. They can't even hire tobacco workers anymore because they have no place to put them.
This is what the residence ordinance is about. If you're gonna get, Glenn, you go advertise in the paper and see if you get help around here. You don't get anybody, 2 or 3 people a year might apply. They don't show up. Get HB1 people coming in, they work seasonally, they move from place to place to place to place to place, and that's how our food comes here. I was born in 1950, and the population of this country was 150 million people. I'm 68 years old, it's 321 million people. In another 75 years, it'll grow just as much, unless we're all starving by then. To preserve the farm in any way possible is not a gift, it's not a special thing. It's planning for a future where, if you know what the hierarchy of needs is, water, food, shelter, clothing, and up the line. We're so used to going and thinking food comes from the store that we don't know where it comes from. But go out on a farm, go pick your own strawberries for an hour and see how much you can get. You'll never pay yourself enough to live on. Go pick potatoes. Bend over all day, like the guys that work on his farm. You can't, you're too tall. That's why they're here. We'll have a whole bunch of discussions about it. Legal immigration would solve the problem. Illegal immigration is over the ball game.
Okay.
But,
Let's vote.
Let's vote. Vote. Is there anybody who hasn't spoken yet that would like to speak? All right, and all those in favor of the ordinance, raise your hand. All those opposed?
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Yeah.
Second.
Get out of here. We got the orders for the meeting.
I'm free.
I just can't communicate with them about it. I can communicate with everybody else about it. All right, speed round. Let's see how fast you can get through this one. We're gonna have a executive session. We'll go through that quick one. I have a lot of faith that we can do it. Real through. Well, we had a lot of discussion. Yeah, that was very good. It was good. It's not the dogs already. It was close. People were spending Thank you for your support.
I'm just going to say how the baby found
She's still pregnant. Yesterday, so literally any day. I did.
What are you doing?
Government relations work for the probate court. Now, my current branch of government, the only one left is in Congress. Part of what I was doing for agriculture,
That's not in there.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
That's cliche. I didn't read it.
I really don't care.
All guys got slapped.
Yeah.
We're 18, 9 years old. Hey, but we're gonna farm.
The first one.
I used to get the horses out in the morning. I took the story.
Because now you think like,
Sucker.
oh my God, everything's coming. How do I do that?
He told me, you didn't know the boundaries or anything.
Yeah.
You said you're going to.
I had.
I apologize.
Look an answer.
Next town meeting, and even maybe for the finance meeting that's coming up, we need to think about the space that's gonna hold. It's a long time for people to be standing.
Yeah, what you said for the next town meeting.
Or even, I know there's a Board of Finance meeting coming up, that could be a big meeting. Isn't that next week?
They're having a lot of budget workshops.
But it's the one that goes, Carol Ann, check with Carol Ann, she said there was one next week. But they might want to consider it, if we're gonna want to
Might be at your school. In the,
yeah, you would have to work that out with them, but 7 to 9:30 is a long time for people to be standing.
I appreciate it. I'm
sorry.
No.
I've been chasing these guys on that. They better split the town from education. Two separate parts.
You ready?
Well, yes.
Hello, you?
Yes. It's good to see you already.
These cheers get harder.
There's Charlie, back to Charlie. Okay, I'll call this, reconvene the Board of Selectmen meeting.
Still have communications, we still have another public Why didn't you bring it?
I didn't bring it. Oh, did you? I get it.
He's supposed to be down in Harvard.
I think.
They don't give us
All right. We'll go on to communications. Okay. For communications, I do have some communications. It's a...
Close the doors back there, please.
Let's close the doors.
Job done today.
Okay, the communications I have is from the Warehouse Point Fire Department. signed by James Barton, the chief. It says, Board of Selectmen, the Fire District Expansion Committee, FDEC, would like to issue a progress report to the status of our committee meeting. The FDEC has held a total of 3 meetings at this time. We currently have a 16-page draft charter that the committee feels will provide the best fire service for the entire town of East Windsor. This draft charter will be finalized and sent to the Warehouse Point Fire District Commissioners and the Broadbrook Fire Department for further approvals. A draft of the budget will be presented at the next meeting for the purpose of discussion. Moving forward, the committee plans the following activities. 1, ratify draft charter and send it to the respective boards and departments for approval. Provide a detailed presentation to the Board of Selectmen on the future fire services for the town of East Windsor. Work with the Board of Selectmen to update the current lease agreement for the Broadbrook Fire Department building and fire apparatus. Present the expansion of the fire district to the town taxpayers as several informational presentations in different locations to properly explain the expansion and the upgrade of the fire services that will be provided to the entire town. We are looking to have this completed for the fiscal year 2020 to 2021. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me, James Barton. So that's a status of where the 2 fire departments are.
Okay.
Public participation.
But before we do that, could we take the certified resolution 12B?
Yes.
Order?
So why don't you make a motion?
I move to take agenda item 12B now.
I'll second that. Is there any discussion? I would say that people are waiting here, so I think that's why Jason's going to do it. So we need a 2/3 vote. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So now to 12B. 12B is?
12B is in boy.
Yeah, okay. Okay, approve certified resolution of applicant for small cities program. And so this is the, we have to approve a resolution. And that resolution, I hope, was in your packet.
Yep. I move the resolution as presented.
Okay.
Second that.
All right. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. The resolution is approved. Now, public participation. Any public participation? Sure.
Bob Light, 80 Rye Street, East Windsor. I notice there's only 1 spot for public participation. I want to say how excited I was about even the dialogue, the exchange of information and opinions during the previous hearing. I was disappointed that everybody left for the good part on your agenda. And I'll summarize it very quickly in regards to what Paul Anderson said. This is a temporary fix we're doing to some of these things. Well, it's a temporary fix we've been doing to everything on an annual budget preparation time. And the only thing that's going to change that is on your item under unfinished business, which is discussion of the charter revision. And I'll repeat again what I said at the last meeting that I attended of the Charter Revision Commission. In summary, we need to have a change in this government with the exception of keeping the town meeting, which is the most representative form of government that there is in the country, okay? And we need to do it by adding, in any way that it needs to get done, a professional, I don't care whether you call him a manager, an administrator, or whatever title you try to make it palatable at the voting booth. That person, it was exemplary tonight in everything that everybody said. We need to have somebody with a financial management background to come up with this 5-year game plan. And I urge you to do that after the commission presents this to you before it goes on to the ballot. Thank you.
Okay. Further public participation? All right. Hearing none, moving on to board and commission resignations and appointments. Somebody want to
I
make
move to accept the resignation of Willie Kehoe from the Economic Development Commission with regret.
I'll second that. Any discussion?
Yeah, Bill was a really good member of the commission. The problem is that he was an engineering student for much of the time. He is now studying law at UConn. He just plain doesn't have time. But when he was there, he was a real contributor. And I'm sorry to see he's leaving the commission.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. The charter revision, we don't really have anything for that to report. Is there any discussion on the charter revision? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to the casino. I did hear, I have some news that the Interior Department has published the Mashantucket Pequot Compact in the Federal Register. Now this changes the situation drastically because now the bill 957 that was approved by the state legislature last year is in the federal government, the bill is now in compliance. So there's nothing really stopping the MMCT from building a casino here in East Windsor. So this is definitely a step in the direction of building the casino. I asked if I can say, just Jason, I said, what are the chances? And he thought it was 60-40 now, which is better than 50.
No, I thought it was 60-40 against before. I think it's probably 70-30 now.
70-30. And so, I was more encouraged than that, but I think there's a good chance we'll have a casino, and it's also a very good chance that the construction might start in a few months. I'm not sure exactly how long. Steve?
Today, Manafort moved a big excavator in on the site this afternoon.
For the houses, I think.
Tear the houses down.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
For clarification, I believe the statement you made is, you might have got the wrong information, but it's my understanding that it's going to be posted in the register come Monday.
Monday the 26th, that's correct.
It got approved Thursday, it's going to be in the register on Monday.
Okay.
And the quote that I read online, I don't know if it was in the paper, from the CEO of one of the tribes, that they're in the process of immediately taking action now that they have approval. So I guess you can't get any faster than getting an excavator in.
Well, but that's for the house, removal of the
But
house.
still, they didn't have to take them down.
Mm-hmm, that's true.
And also to correct the record, I understand that immediately after the posting on Monday, MGM will be filing their injunction to stop putting a shovel in the ground at MGM. So it should be tied up in the courts for a few more years.
Okay.
On constitutional grounds, that it was illegal for the state of Connecticut to provide a corporation a monopoly in one entire industry in the state of Connecticut with no bids.
Thank you. Further
Excuse me?
discussion?
Excuse me, I apologize. I apologize. I don't recognize the young lady.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Denise Terry?
Thank you.
Yes, I'm sorry. 2309 Canyon Ridge.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Since you're allowing a little input.
Yes, I thought this would be a time we
from
could.
the public. There was also a bill that got moved from the Public Safety Commission today to the floor of the legislature that included all kinds of gambling tails, fingers, and one of them was to allow casino to be put into Bridgeport, okay? Along with lottery being done online, tickets being able to be purchased online regarding sports gambling, which also entails the compact that the two casinos have already, and how that's going to affect it. So, and if I'm not mistaken, I heard an opinion that when a bill goes from the different committees to the floor of the legislature, if it's not acted on in 15 days, it automatically passes. Is that?
No, that's not even close to right.
No? What am I thinking?
One item.
Just one item that they're thinking about now? What was that, tolling?
It's a concept called deem and pass. Certain contracts, if not acted on, are deemed to be approved. Legislation has to pass both chambers in exactly the same form. No changes in commas or semicolons or anything. And they need to do that by June 6th. But there are certain committee deadlines where if it's called a JF deadline, their joint favorable deadline has passed, committees are required to list a bill referred to them after their deadline on an agenda within either 10 days or three instances of convening of the referring chamber. So it's not, they need to be acted on.
Well, I'm glad I got the clarification. Thank you for letting me ask. And it proves again, as well involved as I've been, everybody ought to keep their ears to the railroad system and know what's going on. We can't start spending our mitigating finances yet.
Denise.
And until action is taken on the bill that was passed regarding having requests for bids go out for a casino in Bridgeport, there won't be any building here, because the state of Connecticut General Assembly is concerned that if an RFP goes out, it immediately stops the monies coming into the state from the two Indian casinos that exist now.
That's not under the 2017 bill.
Pardon me?
The 2017 bill is the bill that's active. It's 957 or something.
957.
Right, but the bill that passed out of committee, and it was yesterday.
It's not in law.
No, but it passed out of committee,
Yep.
and if it gets voted on, the state of Connecticut will lose all of the monies from the existing compacts with the two tribes. And so it's not a done deal that they're coming here to Windsor at all, East Windsor, especially since MGM is underperforming 50% of what it was expected to. The market is saturated.
So there are a number of interesting legal questions there that lawyers and judges are going to work out, but the 2017 law is now satisfied. Because,
I understand that.
So now the legislature has competing bills, one of which is no longer necessary, which is the East Windsor bill, because that's no longer necessary. But you do raise a good question, and it'll be an interesting political one to see what the legislature does.
Because if they pass an RFP for Bridgeport, the two Indian casinos are going to get in on the action of Bridgeport and abandon this in a heartbeat.
I'm not aware that there is and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm not aware that there is a Bridgeport-specific bill. I think there's an open competitive bid process.
Open competitive bid, but the most likely place is Bridgeport.
I don't know how open and competitive it is when you already know the location, but so there's conflicting. There's the proposed law and there's the existing law now satisfied, and then there's going to be the question of the lawsuit and the injunction, a potential injunction. It's unclear whether there's grounds for an injunction.
What the chairman said at the hearing that I went to, there was a couple weeks ago when they had it, and he said that if it does go to bid, that they will stop the money to the state.
Exactly.
He also said that they will not bid on anything else.
And they've always kept every promise.
That's Butler.
Yeah.
I think if it goes out to bids, they're not going to have a choice but to bid against somebody in Bridgeport.
No.
Because it will kill their two casinos.
The most, I guess we'll see, right? You know, I mean.
I'm just saying, it's not a done deal. It's
There's a-
not like every obstacle is out of the way and they're gonna put a shovel in the ground tomorrow. It's not the
No,
case.
that's why Jason said there's a 30% chance that it fails.
I'm conservative. I am conservative.
I'll take the Las Vegas odds,
I'll take it too. You want to bet now?
Okay, I think we've beat this into the ground, so let's go on to the next topic. That's the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving. And at the last meeting, Debbie Talamini called it to my attention, and I followed up on it. And and I'll read a couple things. I went on their website and actually talked to a person there, Megan Burke. And what they've done is put together a fund. It's called the Greater Together Community Funds. And the Hartford Foundation has created 29 new funds, one for each town in the region. So there's a fund for us, and each fund is $100,000. And in a moment, I'll speak a little about more details about the fund. But interestingly enough, they said I thought the purpose was interesting. Said the purpose of the Greater Together Community Funds is to, one, support the community in taking ownership of around the needs in their town. So that's something I think we all as a Board of Selectmen work on, is trying to get the community to take ownership in the needs of their town. Encouraging broad and inclusive civic engagement, that's another thing that we do. The last thing is something we haven't done, is anchor the Hartford Foundation in each town, and this is a way they're doing it is by giving each town $100,000. And the way that is going to work, they're going to give the town $50,000, and then they're going to put $50,000 aside, and they're going to give the town $2,500 every year from now on, forever, I guess. So that's generally the thing. And it says, and there was a question and answer. It says, I am an individual living in one of the 29 towns where your community funds have been established. How can I apply for the fund? It says, once your town's advisory committee is established, grants from your town's community fund will be available to registered 501c3 nonprofit organizations, in some cases to municipalities. Grants will not be available to individuals or for-profit companies. So, interestingly enough, they want us to create an advisory committee. So that'll be fun to do. She also said they're just starting out. This is an idea that's new to them. They had a new president maybe a year or so ago, and he said, let's do this, let's get the towns involved. And what better way to do it than offer them $100,000? And they got our attention. So I've been in contact with the people there at the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving, and we'll be right in the thick of things when that happens. So I think the first thing we have to do, and something for you guys to think about, is make an advisory committee for the town. And so that'll be fun, I think. Yeah, we'll work on that. And maybe we can have a diverse group of people.
Yeah.
I know that was the criticism of the charter revision thing. It wasn't diverse then.
It's also a requirement of the Hartford Foundation. They were specific about needing to be a broad cross-section that represents the demographics of the town.
Well, we'll see. That's true, but I think it's something we'd like to do anyway. So.
Okay. What's next?
Okay, what's next? A discussion of an ordinance for property tax exemption, another property tax exemption. This one is a special exemption because what was it? the East Windsor Historical Society purchased land, and I know Nancy Masters talked about it. And this is tax exempt land because it's I guess what is it? I guess it's a 501c3. And but for when the land was transferred, they had to pay taxes until it gets on the grand list. So this would exempt them for that. And the value would be about $7,000 that they would get as a
Tax return?
Yeah, it would be $7,214 that it would save if we passed this ordinance.
We talked about this last time, right?
We did, but now the ordinance is here.
Okay. Where exactly is that land?
That is, it's, the land's on, well...
Cemetery Road, right?
It's on Cemetery Road, but I had an address listed here as 15 Scantic. So it's right at the corner of Cemetery Road and Scantic, but back a ways behind. You get to it from, you can get to it either from the Historical Society where the Academy is, or from Cemetery Road.
Oh, okay.
There's a big blue barn there, actually.
There's a big blue house there way in the back, right?
Yeah, I think it's a barn, but...
Yeah, I think that's a house. I didn't know if there was any land left there with the cemetery.
Yeah, about
there.
40 acres.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I'll entertain a motion to pass this ordinance and send it to the town meeting.
I make a motion to pass the ordinance and send it to town meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Now, we did approve the small cities. So now discussion of animal control shelter. That's you, Charlie. If you want to bring it up, I can talk a little about it.
Yeah, it was, you know, in our budget stuff we had as a CIP item, there was money there to, I think, renovate the dog facility on Mill Street for $61,000. And driving past the old fire station in South Windsor on Sullivan Avenue for forever, I saw one day the sign said Tyler Regional Animal Shelter. So I did a little investigation about that and some research, and the name of it, Tyler, is based upon, there was a Chief Tyler in South Windsor, and he came from the West Coast. And in the West Coast, where he came from, so many things were regionalized, and when he came here, you know, he said, kind of nothing is. Everybody's kind of on their own. And that building, when they moved the fire station, or the equipment from there down to the big fire station that they built further down Sullivan Avenue, it had been empty for a long time. And then the town tried to sell it, and they didn't get one single bid on it. I was kind of surprised at that. And it was his idea to make it into an animal shelter. It was driven by the fact that they had complaints from the state over the facility they had, which was a trailer at the town garage. So they had to do something, and they had a plan that to build a new one. It was $4.5 million. So they really didn't want to do that. So that was available, and it kind of worked out ideally in terms of the way the building is made and so forth, to have it as an animal shelter. So I met with him and his deputy chief and the lieutenant that's in charge of the dog stuff in the town. And they took me for a tour, and it was pretty interesting in that when you walk in, it was an office for the fire department on the left. You know, Bill, where that is, and so they have it still set up as an office so that the K-9 officers, when they come there, they have a desk and so forth to fill out their paperwork and do whatever else they have to do. And then you go to where the fire trucks were housed, and you go in there, and they have the cages all set up in rows, and there's 35 or 40 cages there. And again, it's kind of ideally set up for this in that they had big, huge drains in the floor there for the fire trucks when they were there, so that in the cages they put in are elevated, are about 14 inches to my eye off of the ground, which makes it kind of nice, and that they wash it all down and everything every day. They move the dogs, whatever they have there, one row over every day so they can clean those cages every day. There were about 5 or 6 dogs in there when I was there. They have an area outside that when people come to want to look at and see if they want to adopt a dog, they can take them out there. It's a fenced-in area outside and play with the dogs and so forth. So it's kind of really set up really neat. And probably the thing that I liked the best was the fact that on both ends of the bays where the fire trucks were, they have those huge roll-up doors so those big, huge fire trucks could get in and out. So on nice days, they have the doors open on both ends, so you get a nice airflow through there, so they're not all boxed up and everything. And when you walk in there, there's no scent of dog animal whatsoever. It's super clean, super nice. So I talked to him, and I was thinking, there'd probably be some entrance fee, so to speak, or whatever, to become part of this if we had thought about doing that. And but he said no, there wouldn't be, just that we would share in the expense based upon how many dogs that we would have there in the course of a year. And currently they have South Windsor themselves. They also have Manchester, and they also have East Hartford. And Manchester has the most. They pay 46% of what the operating costs are. East Hartford pays 34%, and South Windsor pays 20%. And their operating cost for that place annually is $53,000 and change. So South Windsor's paying just roughly $10,000 a year to have their dogs there. And Bob was trying to find out how many dogs we had in the course of a year. Didn't have that information yet.
We haven't gotten it to you yet. I got an email from the chief that you were looking for information and debated on whether or not we put resources to study it. So we'll get you the numbers for it.
Yeah.
But just trying to get a look back, because the information that you're looking for is not just how many dogs that we've...
I think it's dog nights, basically.
Well, right, it's how many nights of impound is what you need to know. So
yeah.
So it's a lot of information to dig up. So
okay.
Of course, our overtime is up to here right now.
Yeah. So anyway. We'll get you the numbers. Yeah. So anyway, directionally, that with South Windsor having more than twice our population, people make dogs, as I say. Dogs don't make people. People get dogs, they get loose, and all that kind of stuff. So if they're double, I can't think that ours would be more than 10, and it would be, maybe 8,500 now that we're dividing it. If we go this route, we're dividing it 4 ways rather than 3, so everybody's costs come down. And it's really a nice facility, someplace that you wouldn't mind leaving your dog, as a place that it would be taken care of kind of thing. So I also went down to the one that we have here, and it's not a bad facility, just that the state is on us about fixing things there, and the fixing things are that the concrete has cracks in it. It's a block building. It's probably about 30 years old if my memory serves me right, and outside there's an overhang on both sides, and there's a concrete pad outside, that the dogs individually can go out and do their business and so forth, and then go back in through one of those dog doors. And so it's, you know, it's the way it's made. The dogs are on the cement inside. They're not in any elevated cages or anything. I don't know if that's a huge factor or not, but I like the way it was over there in South Windsor. But the cost to fix this was, the number we had gotten was $61,000. And I did talk with Lenny about it, if, you know, he thought that number was pretty strong, and he said it was, because they had numbers from concrete contractors to come in and jackhammer that out, take out the fence, have to put new fencing in, and so forth and so on. And so I think from a financial aspect at this point in time, I think it's a good thing for us to do. And you know, looking at the building being a block building, I know last year that the Park and Rec, when they came for their budget, they had in there that they wanted to get one of those cargo containers, you know, to put stuff in. And looking at that building, it's got a sound roof. It's, like I said, block building, nothing's been rot or anything. That once you clean it all out, that would be a good place to store stuff there. There's a fence around it with wire at the top, so you're not going to get people, you know, lifting a park bench for going through all that effort, kind of thing. And it's a good location, it's nearby, that kind of thing. So I think the building could be utilized for something else. But coincidentally, when I was talking with Lenny at his office, and he said, geez, you just walked in at the right time. And he said he's got some service where he gets information from the state that pertains to public works and whatever's related to them. And in fact, there is a bill that is proposed, and it's an act concerning regional animal control shelters. And basically what it's saying in here is that that towns with less than populations of 25,000, that it's going to be a requirement to have a regional animal control location, and the location may not be adjacent to the town. You might have to go a distance. And certainly here, you know, when you look at it, we're closer to it than East Hartford and Manchester, especially Manchester, by a great amount. So I think if, you know, the math works out, that, in my opinion, I really thought it was a great place. It's well taken care of and so forth, and there's a lot of other details that have to come with that. But, you know, when I read online, delved a little further, it looked like that the people that were reviewing this, the committee, that they were all okay with doing this and moving it forward. So it really won't be an option moving forward anyway.
What's the next step, Charlie?
Before we get into that, this is permissive language, this isn't compelling language. So it says that any two or more towns may agree to be served by a regional animal control officer. It's not going to require it. It's just an opportunity to cost share if municipalities choose to do so. It's not compulsory.
And I'm sorry, you backed that up, it was animal control officer?
Yeah, so the language actually says, there are two changes to the bill. This is existing law, it's 22-331A. The first change is that it removes the requirement that the two towns be contiguous, which in Charlie's example wouldn't matter anyway because they are. But it also allows for those two towns to have a population each of less than $50,000, whereas current law requires that those two towns each have a population of less than 25,000 people. So under current law, we couldn't do this with South Windsor because they exceed the population threshold. Although there's got to be some workaround if Manchester and East Hartford are already doing so. But what this would allow is for any town. So if you wanted to, if East Windsor and Wyndham wanted to do a regional animal control officer, they could. But that gets to the rest of the statute, which talks about regional animal control officer and their ensuing expenses. And then towns would need to provide that will provide adequate facilities and compensation for such officer,
wherever that may be, the host community.
But I think directionally,
You want this one?
that they are telling you that that's what you should do, or you could go off and do it yourself without having to get approval, right?
No. So those facilities are licensed and inspected by the state, actually by the Department of Agriculture.
Yeah.
Chapter 22. So there are certain criteria that municipal animal shelters need to meet. You talk about the cement floor. That absolutely is one of them. It needs to be an impervious surface so it can be cleaned. And what they're trying to do is make sure they can disinfect for communicable diseases like parvo.
Yeah.
So those doggy daycare facilities that want to have like the nice turf grass, that's a big no-no because stuff can live in there forever and ever and your dog can get sick. Doggy daycares are the same thing. You have hardwood. That is incredibly bad for housing communicable disease for long periods of time. You can't clean it. So there's a litany of something like 45 or so different things that the state looks for when they license any type of facility like that. So it's not just to say that you can do it. You need to be operating under a license that's issued after an inspection has taken place and the facility has satisfied those criteria that are outlined in
Which I assume that one is.
I don't know. You can check. You can look it up online.
So can you clarify for me, are we talking about sharing a facility or sharing staff of a control officer?
Facility.
As I read that bill, it talks about an officer.
Yeah, so that's why I'm asking for clarification.
But it's the facility there. They don't, South Windsor doesn't manage any staff in the other towns.
So
They just bring their dogs there.
Yeah, can you clarify again, what was the budget currently for that place?
53,000 and change, you know.
And that's including their staffing in the facility?
Yeah. It was 18,000 for a part-time person. And
Do they not staff it all 24 hours a
no.
day?
No.
Who's with the dogs all
Nobody.
night?
Nobody's with our dogs. Nobody's with our dogs.
Somebody should be.
Police officers on our.
Costs money.
But somebody should be, I mean.
I went to our dog shelter today, just to check it out. I had never seen it before. And there was it's adequate. And as Charlie said, in the building where there's heat, there's cages, and the cages have a door to the outside. So and there was a dog in there, and it was on quarantine. I guess it bit somebody, but there was no one there. But the dog seemed to be kind of happy. He barks a little bit, but.
Probably one of the things to think about, though, would be that building that we have now, cost of renovation and maintenance and everything else, we're looking at a pretty solid number of 60,000. I think CIP, we had addressed it over 3 years, like 20,000 a year. So the question is, are we getting short-term savings if we were to regionalize and go with South Windsor, if they can take us and have the capacity? Because in 6 years, we will be probably at that number. And then from there forward, we're just paying. You follow me? So we do the maintenance and repairs that we need to do, spend the 60,000, and say, just for a round number, say it costs us 10,000 a year to be in that facility. Well, in 6 years, we're back to zero again, and now we're just paying out. So is it a short-term savings?
That's a good question. I think,
You know,
what I think.
Long-term, and the other point too, if we abandon that facility, right now, we're kind of grandfathered in with, who is the regulation authority with that?
Department of Agriculture.
Right, so Department of Agriculture has kind of grandfathered us and let us go along with our planned renovations. Once we abandon that facility, we're done. If we ever have to, we have to build new facilities.
That's true, when you have to meet the criteria.
If you abandon it, you can't get it back.
So, Andy asked what's our next steps, and I think we've got to get more information, really. And maybe we should get somebody from the dog park involved, somebody who cares about dogs. But
well, I think the first thing to do is wait to see if the legislation passes.
Well, why is that?
Because as I understand it, we would need that legislation to pass in order to participate with South Windsor.
I didn't understand that at all, so that's something I'll have to research. Yeah.
If you go back to when I was on the Board of Finance, there was a law that was passed back then, I'm going to say go back maybe 10 years, go back where we were looking at regionalizing with Windsor Locks, because they built a new facility. If you take a look and talk to the chief, because they're in charge of the animal control, I'm sure he's got all them statistics if you want to look at and look and do some matching and comparison. I know things have changed, but I think he can answer a lot of your questions whether or not it's going to be feasible to do or not.
Well, I just wanted to know what the count of dogs was for the last year and that.
Right, and like I said, so to compile that information, it's going to take some time. It's, you have to know how many impound days. That's the criteria that they charge you.
You think you'd write it in a book when a dog comes in.
Yeah.
But
nobody's working there.
Somebody's got to go dig up that information for the past year. So.
Well, there's 2 part-time canine officers, correct? But there were 2.
There were.
Up until...
We were without a canine officer up until...
Well, they're animal control, they're not canine. You want to clarify that.
I'm sorry, animal control ACO. We were without an ACO up until a few months ago.
For how long?
One now.
I mean, there's a difference between somebody catching a dog.
But for how long was it? How long was it that you didn't have anybody at all?
Months, I believe.
And so what did we do?
Yeah.
Yeah, but what you start having then is you're paying somebody a police officer salary instead of $17 an hour part-time.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm going to look into it more. One thing I did notice, I drove by, but it was locked when I went to the South Windsor one. And I'm going to tour it with somebody, but it had a sign on the outside that said on Saturdays from 10 to 3, there was you could come and adopt a dog. So that was a good thing. So we'll see. Have to look into what features the both would offer. But I think more research is needed, but we're starting. Anything more?
What are we going to do with it?
Do with what?
With this proposition, we just going to let it die, or?
No, I think we'll talk about it. We'll get it up on the agenda for next meeting. We can get more information.
And what more information are we going to get?
One, we'll get a count of how many dogs we've been in ours, and then
the number of dogs in impound days.
Impound days. Okay, that's even better. Yeah, and at least I can go see the inside of that South Windsor one and talk to some people there. So we'll get some more information. Okay, tax refunds.
I make a motion to issue the tax refunds in the amount of $154,465.09.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion?
It's like the 200th meeting in a row, 200th meeting in a row where my name has not been on this list, Bob.
You expecting it on there?
Just hoping.
Good discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Let's send that down. Okay. Charlie, you want to make selectmen comments and reports?
The only thing I have to comment on is that I did attend the joint fire department meeting that they had on Tuesday evening, and from my perspective, I think they've had a lot of progress of working together to put together their charter that composes both departments. You heard tonight that you got the letter from Jim saying that they're going to present it to their their people, and Broderick is going to present it to their people for their comments. And so it's moving along, which I felt really good about. I was a little concerned, you know, how much progress are we in and so forth, and directionally, you know, what does this look like, and when if it is going to happen, could it happen? And I think that they're on track so that, you know, come the January 1st of next year, things will be concluded one way or the other, whether it'll move forward or not, and then they'll be into doing what they have to do for their budgeting and for their revenue stream.
Okay, Steve, do you have anything?
I went to the same meeting Charlie went to, and Charlie just explained it all, so that's it.
Okay. Andy?
No meeting, no report.
Okay. Jason?
No meeting, no report.
And I don't have anything either, so I will move, we go into executive session at
So, at 10:28.
10:28.
I think that's appropriate.
So you're saying my escrow's not going to do it? Just hoping.
If you could, Bob, email me just like you got a question like what you were asking the chief for the information and stuff, and that way it prevents him asking me, and we're going back and forth. And what's he need, so just include
I certainly will email you. What did you call those?
Is that what that is?
Those days you wanted?
Oh, it's so what the number that you need to get is the number of impound days. So the number of dogs and impound days.
What is it done?
Because that's what they based the.
Just tells you it's President Harrison and Governor.
We're still on the hook
you
for,
think it was?
you know, food, care, feeding, and all that stuff. We all
So there's a plaque on
Okay.
Humboldt Street in Hartford, commemorating the spot where Teddy Roosevelt
Good night,
died
guys.
in an automobile. He was the first president to ride in an automobile.
There you go. Isn't that cool?
So I gotta finish Obama, and then I gotta do Harrison, and then I've read a biography on all of them. All of them.
Well, you've been paying attention on Facebook? Your name's been bandied about.
What?
We have Harrison books at the library.
Really? On Benjamin Harrison?
Yeah.
I'll see you Saturday. Well,
Yeah.
We'll see.
Here we go. Never mind. We're open till 7 on Wednesday.
I have plans on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Okay. If you pass these down, take one, pass it down.
What's on the hit list?
Two things.
See ya.
Right, these are two different things.
Yes, one says last on it, one says BOS.
Okay.
Well, there's two sets of stuff.
And the,
Camera's still on.
thank you.